position of Honorable Nodata as a shadow minister. He must impress his masters. He was all over the place, but let's go back to the original question. Honorable Minister, LGBs are all critical bodies as organs of people's power in education. It epitomizes creating collective responsibility for the governance of our schools. Minister, how is the department addressing the problems of dysfunctional or disruptive school governing bodies which hamper the effective functioning of schools? Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
No, thank you very much.
Members, order. Please continue.
No, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, member. Indeed, we do experience in some instances where governing bodies sometimes make the life of schools and of principals difficult. But I think to be honest, we have very good school governing bodies that we work very close with. We have national bodies, and they're extremely helpful in terms of really school governance, in terms of policies, so that when we have difficulties, we engage a lot. Even when we're doing the Bella bill, there was no step I was taking without bringing governing bodies on board. So where we would have differed, we would have differed after engaging. But all of them are very cooperative, very supportive, but sometimes you may not agree if your principles don't, or your interests don't come together. But we work with them, we do lots of training through governing bodies, and we also get lots of support from them. As I say, sometimes we don't agree if it's questions of principles and we find that principles clash. But we work with them, and there's lots of comprehensive training that we do with them. Thank you very much. And they support us a lot.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Boshoff.
Honourable Chair, thank you. I ask permission not to open my camera due to connection problems.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I want to ask the Honourable Minister if she would acknowledge that there are school communities which are not exactly geographical communities. I think like a school like the Afrikaans Hoër Seuns en Meisies, two schools in Pretoria, who have a community which actually extends over the whole of the northern provinces, and that the decision in the Schools Act of 1996 and where school governing bodies were established acknowledged that such communities, school communities, not necessarily geographical communities, have the right to maintain their own schools, even public schools, and that it is one of the basic fundamentals of the 1996 constitutional dispensation that is broken by taking away the powers of school governing bodies to actually maintain their culture and their ethos, provided that no more money from the state could be
expired.
No, then I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
No, Chair, that's exactly what Bella Bell is trying to do. Between 1994 and now, there's been lots of geographical and movement of people from different places. And you can't continue to really work on the basis of settlements which were there before 1994. There are communities which have moved around those areas, those schools. It's not going to be correct to say a child who is opposite that school in terms of the geographic space cannot have access to that school because it belongs to a community which is 10 kilometers away from the school. So meaning that this child has to leave a school just in front of their gate to go to look for a school 10 meters away. There's lots of discussions that we are doing with schools to make sure that first we do preserve or protect, for instance, the language preferences, but again, we have to intervene and make sure that those language or cultural preferences don't discriminate against other South African children who have the right to access that school. So you can't close the school because that school's in Gauteng, it's in the Val, it admits kids from the Free State because it's an African school, and kids in the Val can't have access to that school in Gauteng because it belongs, or the community believes that it belongs to a certain community. And these amendments are meant to address some of those problems. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Swart.
Thank you, Chair. I ask this question on behalf of Masukkers. Honourable Minister, school governing bodies in rural, low-income and marginalised communities struggle to access the skills and training required to engage in school management effectively. This means that tens, if not hundreds of millions of rands are wasted. This also makes the research that goes into effective school governing body training a key priority for the department. Is the Minister willing to conduct research to assess the effectiveness of current programs and share the result with this House, and also willing to implement the recommendations of researchers in this regard where practically possible? I thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
No, thank you, Member. If indeed there's a need to do it, I don't think there's any difficulty with agreeing in that. But also I want to break this myth that rural equals to backwardness and ignorance purely. I've been to schools and areas, Chair. Deep in the Eastern Cape, you get into a meeting, you find extremely brilliant contributions coming from members. And when you ask, who is this person who really seems to be so knowledgeable? It's a retired professor who's come back to stay back in the rural areas. So rurals don't necessarily are not necessarily equal to ignorance. People in rural areas know what they want for themselves, what they want for their children. And sometimes the difficulties are in the very urban areas where you find very difficult attitudes that are extremely backward, reactionary, that themselves also need to be worked on. But as I say, I don't have any difficulty with really doing an assessment of the impact of the trainings that we have, both in urban and rural and in different communities, and not only around the running of schools, but even the values that we need in our schools, values of patriarchy, values of unity, values of nationalism. And those are things that we expect also school governing bodies to inculcate in the schools where they govern. So both sides, we find that there are lots of things that we need to engage as South Africans, and especially the parents, and the values that they teach their kids when they come to school.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, we will now proceed to question number 421, asked by the Honourable Motshekga to the Minister of Basic Education. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Member Motshekga, and thanks again for the question. The total number of schools that we have closed since 2021 are 1,503. And then the member wants to know what support we give. First is to check if the school is viable. And in some instances, we found that the school is not viable. It makes no educational sense to keep it alive, even for the sake of the children themselves. So then we'll support those schools to make sure that they can find spaces nearby. But the member will also agree with me that there will be situations, especially schools which are in farming areas, which you can't close unless you don't want kids to go to school. And that's why we provide opportunities or training for multi-grade teaching. We then work very well, and some of these multi-grade schools perform much better than your single grade teaching. We work with teachers to give them skills for multi-grading. We improve their management systems because sometimes we give them more teachers than is allowed by law. And in most instances, for instance, in the Western Cape, they are providing ICTs. That's why in all their farm schools, and that's a program we're rolling out or are taking as lessons from the Western Cape to make sure that where you can't provide any other means, use ICTs to compensate. And those schools sometimes tend to be much better than even your single grade schools. But we look at different things, whether it's viable or it's unviable, or if it's possible to close or not to close. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Motshekga. The Honourable Motshekga.
I will take the question, Chair, if she has a connection problem.
Please proceed.
It's Honorable Thembekwayo.
Please proceed, Honourable Member.
Minister, in 2019, the department announced that more than 3,000 schools with fewer than 135 pupils at primary and 220 pupils at secondary school level being targeted at the time. Most of these schools were situated in Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Northwest and Eastern Cape, with the Eastern Cape in particular accounting for more than 1,300 schools. What impact will this have on the learning abilities of children, some of whom would have to be transported to far away places to get education? Secondly, what impact will this have on local economics of the affected areas? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Minister.
No, thank you very much. What guides us, it's really whether it's education, does it make educational sense to run the school? Because our business is it's teaching and learning, not what the economies will do. I think it would be unfortunate if we affect the economy, but our fundamental principle about learning and teaching. And as the member correctly says, that there are a number of these schools, and now we've only done 1,500 because there are lots of considerations that we have to do in terms of the learners' abilities to go to other areas. I'll give an example in Mpumalanga. Mpumalanga is rolling out a program of boarding schools, so that older children, when we close the school, they put them in mega schools, and it has improved the quality of life, the quality of education, and the impact thereof. But as member will also know that you also don't want to institutionalize very small children. You don't want to take a grade R or a grade 1 to a boarding school. And that's where we get softer. We have multi-grade schooling to make sure that we can manage the impact of those changes to learners. So we have a program of rolling out boarding schools, because the fact of the matter is it's cruel to keep an unviable school. I've been to a school in Limpopo, 75 kids from grade 1 to grade 12. It's completely unworkable. There is no way you can have 75 kids from grade 1 to grade 12 in one place and think you can teach them effectively. It's not viable. And that school had got 0 pass, but it's not viable. So the main interest and what guides us first is what does it make educational sense? After that, what are the rights of the children? How do we protect them? And how do we make sure that they are safer? They they get what is rightfully theirs. The other things become consequential, either advantages or accidents. But the bottom line is, does it make educational sense to keep that school?
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Binko Kigaba.
Thank you very much, Chair. Honourable Minister, the conditions in urban and rural areas are different, and both have varying strengths and weaknesses. When comparing urban schooling and rural schooling, what is the difference in learner and teacher performance? Thank you very much, Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
It's quite interesting to really have to do that, because it always strikes me where you find schools in the same conditions, perhaps of poverty, performing differently. Today, the HOD has gone to KZN, and I know he's going to go to a school called Bizimani. It's one of the mega schools with the best results in the country, and it's in deep rural. So what makes the difference? It's the way, the leadership of the school, the determination of learners, and some of the kids who are there and Bizimani are kids who come from urban areas because parents know that there's effective teaching. Then we have schools that have everything else in urban areas that are not performing. So for me, it's not only around the rurality or the poverty, but it's about the leadership, it's about the resources, it's about parents that has given me hope. If you go to schools in Vembe, they're in deep rural areas. They outperform schools in urban areas. Poor as they are, rural as they are, there are schools in urban areas which have everything, good infrastructure. They're not performing the way they should be performing. So it boils down to leadership, and it boils to what happens inside the school more than where the
But give
school is
schools
located.
resources. Why do you say it's
Honorable
leadership? Give
member.
schools resources.
Honorable Ndlozi, you can't just interrupt
Wena
the Honorable
ka-
Minister. Stick to the rules, please. The next supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Van der Walt.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, sorry, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, the Minister have just replied that since the 2021, 1,500 schools were closed or merged. Yesterday, during a presentation, it was stated that since the start of the program, 1,924 schools were closed, and for this year alone, another 1,237 schools were identified. It is actually clear that the legislative framework of Department Basic Education is ineffective, as thousands of schools supposed to have been closed by now to ensure quality teaching and learning is still open. What are the reasons for the department's framework not being effective? And for the sake of quality teaching and learning, whether the Minister will take steps, what steps will she indeed take to make sure that for the sake of teaching and learning and the quality of education on its own, that the framework will be effective? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
No, thank you very much, Member Desiree, by acknowledging that the school closures are informed by our pursuance to have quality learning and teaching. That's what guides it. And I'm really glad that you put that as the reason why we're doing it. What delays it, Member, is that there are laws around how you close schools. You have to consult, you have got to get parents. Sometimes it takes you up to a year to reach that agreement. And you don't want to close schools and fight with communities, but you want to make sure that by the time you reach that stage, you have closed schools. This 1,500, it's since 2021. It's not like when we started 5 years back. So we've closed quite a number of schools in townships. Member Tembewa will know that even in her own area, in Soweto, the schools that were closed because they were no longer viable. We had to merge schools, but again, in merging schools, you have to take committees around. But as I said, in some instances, you find that it's not possible to do it just abruptly. We have a boarding school process. In Mpumalanga, we are putting it, but for instance, you can't institutionalize very small children. In the Western Cape, they also had a program of boarding schools. Committees resist to say we don't want our kids to be mixed with kids who come from this area because they're going to be contaminated and become gangsters, which means you go back and say, what else do we do if parents are unhappy with keeping their kids in boarding schools? So there are pushes and backwards, because you're dealing with human beings, you're dealing with parents, but you're dealing with people's lives, and you have to be very careful how you move around it. And that's why in the meantime, as well, we are trying to negotiate your way around it. When parents in the Western Cape said, no, we don't want our kids in a boarding school because they'll be recruited in gangsters. So what else do we put in place? Which delays also sometimes the measure, which delays the closing. And you then have multi-grade schools, you use ICTs. So we are doing all we can as provinces, being sensitive to the very people that we are serving, to make sure that they're not disadvantaged finally by what we think is in their advantage, which is quality teaching and learning.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Swart.
Thank you, House Chair. And again, I ask this on behalf of Honorable Sukkers. Honorable Minister, we appreciate, the ACDP appreciates the concerns that you are taking into consideration when it comes to boarding schools and consulting the parents, particularly when it comes to young children. Now, yesterday in the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education, the Department of Basic Education highlighted the challenges the sector faces with public micro schools in rural areas. And yes, we do admit there are some excellent schools in rural areas. However, is the Minister aware of the positive impact independent micro schools are having in rural towns and throughout the country? And if so, is the Minister's department willing to research independent micro schooling so that her officials can learn how these schools deliver quality education in small, multi-grade settings to deal with the issues and to assist those parents that don't want their young children to go to boarding schools? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
No, thank you very much, Member. As I've just explained, that it's such a very sensitive area, which sometimes as the sector, you tend to have blind spots. As I say, the blind spot in the Western Cape of taking kids to schools and parents turning around to say our kids are going to be recruited into gangsters, which is something perhaps you would not have seen, and therefore you have to go back to the drawing board. But I've also said in the Western Cape itself, because they have lots of small rural areas, they are using ICT. So we don't only need to research independent schools. There are schools in the public sector which are doing very well with multi-grade schooling. There are schools in the deep Eastern Cape, again, they're using ICTs as a tool of really improving. So you do find some of the small schools doing exceptionally well, because kids sometimes who are, you teach a phase, which is a different way. So you teach your foundation phase together. So those who are in grade 1, they can hear what is being said in grade 2, and you find that they can merge. Those that are remaining or have gaps of grade, who are in grade 3, gaps from grade 2, they are gaining also being in the same space. So we are investigating that area, because unfortunately 25% of our schools are your multi-grade schooling. And that's why we're paying attention is to say, what more do we do in instances where we can't consolidate, we have to run a small school, what more do we do to enhance? But looking at independent schools, again, I don't think it's quite harmful, but I'm saying even in the public sector, there are pockets of excellence in the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape, which we are following quite close and are taking lessons from. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Members, question number 386 has been asked by the Honourable B.N. Lulane to the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to Honourable Lulane. Chair, the answer here is that SAFA is the custodian of football in the country. So the department works and supports SAFA in the implementation of football programs. Since the inception of the National Women's Football League in 2019, the department has been providing an amount of 5 million rands per annum to ensure that the league reaches a level at which it can attract sponsorship. SAFA's partnership with Hollywood Bets is an indication that this investment is beginning to bear fruits. The department also provides SAFA with additional funds for other women's programs such as capacity and talent identification. It should be noted that we also add funds to provide for this intervention in the financial year 2020-2022. This is purely for the development and professionalization of women's game. It is the intention of the department to continue to fund SAFA with the objective of ensuring that their products are bankable and able to attract sponsorship, as government has limited resources. More investment by private sector would enable the formation of more clubs for women's football and creation of stronger women's football leagues at all levels, as a private sector would do in other sporting codes. In addition, the annual school sport program categories, which we do together with the Department of Basic Education, cater for women football. These are under 15 and under 17 age groups and persons with disabilities. The school sport program, especially for football, is geared towards ensuring that girls are given equal opportunities in all respect, playing opportunities in technical officiating, in coaching and managing provincial football teams, In March 2022, we took the under-15 girls team from Idinde Technical High School in KwaZulu-Natal, who were the national winners of the school sport championship, to the inaugural FIFA-initiated Pan-African School Football Championship in the DRC. They did us proud, the chair must say, that they were only, they only came second. They were defeated in the final by Morocco. So the win by Banyana against Morocco was, if I say, a sweet revenge, chair. But chair, let me say that this very team has also won the Winter National School Sport Championship. And they are also representing us at COSAFA Schools Football Tournament to be held in Malawi in October. Preparations are currently underway to ensure that they are fully prepared to represent us. In this regard, there is no doubt of our commitment to support the development of women's football and the support provided to ensure its growth. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I now recognize the Honourable Dlulane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, we recognize the role which has to be played by the South African Football Association in promoting women's soccer, as you have just saying. Sports for women are supported by the private sector, making them lucrative to have the capacity to sustain livelihoods of sports persons. Honourable Minister, we must position women's sport to be financially sustainable to support the well-being and livelihoods of women players, as you have just said, and we do appreciate what the department and the president has done for Banyana. My question, Honourable Minister, what is the role and progress of the department in encouraging sponsorships and partnerships with the private sector to create gender equity in women's soccer? Maybe your contribution to assist even the SAFA, if you can, but I'm supposed that you can do that. Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable
Well,
Minister.
Chair, if I may, the network is not stable where I am. If I may switch off my camera, Chair.
Please proceed, Honourable Minister.
Well, Chair, thank you very much, Honourable Member Dlulane. I think that you are spot on. We need to see the private sector supporting women in sport generally. But what is it that we are doing, as your question goes, is that we have advanced, Honourable Member, in consultation with the national federations, with provinces and everybody, in coming up with the Women in Sport policy, which is aimed primarily to ensure that there's equity, be it on gender, be it on salary, and so on. And this would be coming before Parliament, before your portfolio committee, Chair, for you to scrutinize it, because we are determined. We're going to ensure that this policy is passed so that fairness is realized, particularly for women in sport.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Madlinkosi.
Chair, I will
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Minister, it has been recorded that most, if not all, Banyana players are playing for our country as if it is one of their hobbies, because they have to juggle between their 9-to-5 daily jobs, which means they will not have 100% attention to their national call. What plans have you got to make them totally focusing their energies and concentration towards football? Thank you, Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Honorable Madlingos. No, you'll be pleasantly surprised that with Banyana you have the most dedicated squad to their country and their people. And they are not playing football as a hobby. I can tell you now, Honorable Member, that 50%, almost 50% of them play in SAFA Women's Football League. And the rest are playing, and they are being remunerated in euros and dollars. They are playing international football. So it's not hobby for them. Now, the emphasis from our part is to ensure that we strengthen SAFA Women's Football League. We strengthen our work with the Department of Basic Education on national school system. And this system is working because almost 80% of the squad, the current squad of Banyana, come from this very school system. You can talk of Gatlin Swar, Refilo Janede, the captain, Tembe Khatlane, Hilda Makai. I can name all of them. So what I'm saying, Honorable Member, is that no, we are very much focused, and we have placed ourselves at the disposal of SAFA to further engage the private sector, which we have started in some different areas of women's sport in this country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Lutuli.
Chairperson, I'll take the question for Honourable Lutuli.
Please proceed. Order, Honourable members.
Honourable Minister, considering the display of excellence showcased in South Africa women's sports, from soccer and swimming to rugby and golf, especially over the past years, I would like to know how the funding framework for women's sports have been adjusted to equal that of men's sports. How has the department capacitated sports federation to address gender parity? I thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Member, for your question. In fact, if you look at what is happening now, is part of this pipeline of investing mainly in development of youth in sport. And when we do that, we do it from the level of school, the school level to university. And in that way, you are able to identify at an early age of some of the players who are playing the national team today. See, if you take, for instance, an example of Linda Matlau, who started at the age of 14, that tells you that this kind of investment, particularly in developing the sport at the lower level, is and will continue to pay dividends. With the federations, for instance, all the national federations, with the allocation we give it to them, we emphasize the ring fencing of the women's sport in different sporting code. And that is happening, Chair. And we know that as we move forward, it is going to continue to show result. What seems to be the major challenge now is to get the partnership with the private sector, as they are, supporting other sporting codes, particularly of men in the country. We really want to have, as I said earlier on, we must commend, Hollywood Bets, for instance, Sasol, who believe in women in sport, especially women in football. And we call upon many more to support women. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The last supplementary question is to be asked by the Honourable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, as much as, I must agree with you, there is some work being done at grassroots at school level, but certainly not enough. Now, let me give you an example of Caitlin Roos-Krantz. And if you remember, she won gold for first South African female to win artistic gymnastics gold for South Africa. There's very little facilities and things available. Why you not suggest to your colleagues from the other departments to do what they do abroad in many other countries, where they develop sports from a local government level, employ sports coaches from the municipalities or the councils, so that they can develop those with quality sportsmen and women in that particular community, so that it will also make it easier for you to identify those with the talent and the skills to develop in sports. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Not doing enough. Yes, Honourable Member, I would agree with you on that. We would want to do more. But let's start on facilities. As you know, that the provision of facilities for sporting activities is the primary responsibility of local government. That's where it is. And it's a constitutional matter, as it were. But over and above that, we have what we call the Municipal Infrastructure Grant. And that grant, we have enforced to municipalities for the grant to be ring-fenced so that it does what you would perhaps know, Honourable Member, that if you go to different spheres of government, especially at a local level, people have not, even with the resources at their disposal, have not taken on board issues of sport and ensuring that they concentrate on sport. So that's what we do, especially this relate to your district municipality, meaning mostly in rural areas and so on. Because when it comes to metros, the grant then comes from human settlement, working with metros at that level. So we would, and I'm glad, Honourable Imam, that I have somebody who's going to be with me here in engaging our local governments to ensure that they understand that sport is as important as any other aspect of human endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Members, question number 371 has been asked by the Honourable MGE Hendricks to the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Well, the funding of athletes and teams participating at continental and international events is managed through two processes. Firstly, individual continental and international championships are funded through national federations. To this end, the department funds the activities of national sport and recreation bodies for domestic, continental, and international events, amongst others. This is dependent on bodies meeting or being compliant to requirements, amongst others, recommendations and findings of the Eminent Persons Group on transformation in sport, financial accountability, and we have recently added a requirement that federations must submit to the department safeguarding policy. And this has been really, I must commend the portfolio committee, has been very much pushing on this. Now we've made it as one of the conditions. Secondly, the South African Sport Confederation and Olympics Committee, SASCOC, is tasked with the delivery of Team South Africa at major multi-sport events such as Olympics, African Games, Paralympics, etc. The department funds SASCOC to deliver Team South Africa in major international sporting events, like the recent Tokyo Olympics, Region 5 Games, AU Region 5 Games, 2021-2022, and the Commonwealth Games held in August 2022. That was last month. Lastly, the department acknowledges that some sport and recreation bodies do not apply for funding or do not comply with requirements, and we are working with SASCOC to address such challenges, as this has a bearing on athletes' participation at national, continental, and international level. Further, some competitions are organized independently outside of jurisdiction of the national sport and recreation bodies as individual talks, trials, etc. In such cases, the department is unable to support these programs, as these fall outside of the jurisdiction of and program of the national sport recreation bodies. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by Honourable Hendricks.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for that comprehensive explanation. Honourable Minister, you know that South Africa is hosting the World Cup in netball, and you gave all honourable members T-shirts to promote this World Cup that will take place in Cape Town in June or July next year. Netball is one of the few sports that is the domain of women. There's no men competing in netball. And I'm just worried that seeing that netball is is a women's sport, and whether your department is doing enough to fund infrastructure all over the country, especially in villages. And our constituency office has been approached for assistance and for information about the netball tournament, because I wear that shirt that you gave us, Honourable Minister. So we would like to know in the run-up to the World Cup in July, if you can prepare to make a special effort so that there is more interest in netball, and you show support for the one sport that women dominate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Honourable Member, and thanks for your question. You are correct, Honourable Member. The whole world is descending on our shores next year, 2023, for the very first time on African soil since Netball World Cup inception in 1963. So it will be 60 years since its inception. We work with the city of Cape Town, the metro, which is going to be the whole city. We work with the province of culture and sport in Cape Town, and we coordinate this through the interministerial committee to ensure that everything is put in place for such. What seemed to be the challenge currently, Chair, as the Honourable Member, as you pointed out, is the reaching out to all the communities and for people to understand and give necessary support, like we would give in other instances, as it were. On the issue of the facilities, part of the program has because with netball you have a specialized floor, and the floor is very critical for netball. So as part of the legacy programs, we have together with the local organizing committee led by Ms. Patience Shikwambane, who's the chair or the chairperson of the LOC in this country. We are already have identified all the provinces to ensure that we give facilities of this nature and the courts themselves in some instances. So that work is happening, but as I said, that the work of getting everybody and galvanizing everybody behind the netball in South Africa is really needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The second supplementary question will be asked by JP Mamabulo, Honorable Mamabulo.
Ke a leboga modulasetulo tona go leboga le wena ya tša dipapadi le bogabo le setšo putswaka e no ba fela gore na di-sporting codes tša rena tša go computer internationally, how are we going to be able to make sure next time we give them proper allocation of money? Because sometimes you find Bafana being given too much money, Cricket South Africa being given little money, Boxing SA and SASCOG and so forth. So going forward, Minister, how are we going to be able to make sure that we are able to balance the allocations? Thank you very much.
The Honorable Minister.
Well, Honorable Member, as much as we have, we would be able to, and we are actually giving to different, we have not so far had anything to do with funding of Bafana. But there has been with the recent win of Banyana. Now, how it goes is that we give allocation, the budget of the department, almost 80% thereof is transferred to the federations, the national federations, on specific instances like the international tournaments, like the Olympics, Paralympics, and so on, to the confederation, which is SASCOG. But as a general working of the department, it gets transferred to provinces because this is where activities happen. This is where sporting activities need support, and we'll continue on that. To the raising thereof, it will depend on the kind of budget we have, because as I said, almost 80% of that goes to the transfers. Thank you very much, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Mhlongo.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson.
Do the handshake. Are you guys ready for the handshake? I know you for the handshake.
Honorable Judith.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Since motorsport is not a priority in your department, Minister, especially Makasi, there's a gentleman named Upule Mutloung. He started motorsports at SOWT, moved the motorsports to Orange Farm. He's independent, he's doing it for himself, he's paid for everything, even for the infrastructure. While the government is not supportive, he has hosted a motorsports showpiece at Orange Farm. Minister, what are you going to do? Because Emakasi, motorsports is a concern. What measurement are you going to take to support different communities in the motorsports? Do you know any disadvantaged community practically that run their own sporting code without any support, financial support from the department? And what are you going to do to target and promote different sporting code that are not getting support from your department, especially in the rural areas? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Well, thank you, Honorable Member, and thanks, Honorable Member Mhlongo, and thanks, Chair. Well, Honorable Member, you know the sporting codes, 18 of them, which you are doing oversight over as Parliament, which insofar as the budget structure of government are catered for. There are many sporting codes which are not part and parcel of the priority. Motorsport is not a priority of the department and of government currently. And as I say, that with the budget structure we have, we are not adequately funding the ones, football, rugby, all of them which you see in the townships. For instance, football is the most loved and supported sporting code in the country. So we'll see, because these things have to be linked to policies. So if policy doesn't cater for that, maybe it's a canvassing of the change of policy to take on board motorsport. That is something which will have to be engaged as we go forward. Thank you very much, Chair.
The last supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Madlingozi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Minister, the reality is that rugby and cricket are well funded because South African corporate are racists. They are controlled by whites who are not interested in the development of sports that represent South African demographics. Government must just step in and make commitment, fund preparations and participation of all sporting codes. The problem is not disadvantaged communities, it is discrimination. Should we not make all corporates to contribute to a centralized pool of funds wherein an independent, partial, and transparent body can allocate the same way the IEC collect donations for promotion of democracy so that we can promote equality? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
We would thank you, Chair. Thanks, Honorable Madlingozi. We really would want to make the point that we need support of the private sector to go beyond your traditional sporting codes, which are there. But as the name says, it's a private sector. All what we do is to engage them. Coming up with a law to force them, I'm not sure. I think that is something which private sector and private sector people are engaged in commercial interest. They have their own commercial interest. And they have supported those they want to support. What we are doing as government and as the department is to ensure that the kind of product we are producing ourselves. Have made an example to women's football situation, for instance, is that they become bankable products which will attract sponsorship. We solely need sponsorship in different sporting codes. Indeed, you are correct, Honorable Member. Some of the sporting codes from the private sector are, well funded and well supported, as it were, and people have, as we engage them, as I said earlier on, that we are working with different national federations, make our contribution in engaging different companies and so on to come on board to support sport generally, but specifically women in sport. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. That will brings us to question number 387 that has been asked by Honorable Munyai to the Honorable Minister of Health. Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair and Honorable Members, and thanks to Honorable Munyai. In April 2022, the World Health Organization reported 10 cases of severe hepatitis amongst previously healthy children in the United Kingdom. It should be noted that hepatitis occurs relatively commonly in children, although the majority of cases are mild and the cause can be readily identified. The majority of cases are due to identifiable infections known as hepatitis A to hepatitis E, as well as other viruses, whilst a small number of cases are due to some of the medicines or toxins. The cases identified in the UK were unusually severe, and no cause, or in medical terms, no etiology could be identified. Between 5th April and 8th July 2022, 35 countries in 5 of the 6 WHO regions reported just over 1,010 probable cases. And this included also retrospective, where there had not been identified as this hepatitis of unknown cause or unknown etiology. And the retrospective analysis of specimen and reports was taken as back as October 2021. And out of this, just over 1,000 were identified. Of the probable cases, 46 out of the over 1,000, 5% of the total children required liver transplants. 2%, that is 22, were reported to have passed away, as reported to WHO. As of July 2022, no cases have been identified in our region, which is the Afro region, which constitute 47 member countries in the African region, because there are other countries in African region who belong to Mediterranean region in the north of the continent. WHO also reported a decreasing trend in cases over the last month of August, although this trend should be interpreted carefully as there are reporting delays and limited surveillance in some of our countries. Ongoing investigations that suggest that acute hepatitis may be linked to the adenovirus infection. However, the exact cause or etiology, causative organism remains to be determined. Now, adenovirus is a very common infection which usually causes minor disease such as upper respiratory infection, but it can also cause severe respiratory infections such as pneumonia, but it can also cause hepatitis in children who are immunosuppressed. In light of the above, our NICD has developed and disseminated a quick reference for clinical healthcare workers which alerts clinicians to the condition and advises them to consider adenovirus testing in pediatric cases of this condition, of this childhood hepatitis. Information on any suspected cases will be collected through our standard investigations. So while cases, especially mild cases, may be missed, the majority of children with acute liver failure would be referred to a tertiary hospital or even a central hospital. WHO has indicated that epidemiological, clinical, laboratory, and toxicological investigations of the possible cause of this is underway by several authorities, research networks across different groups within the WHO partners. This includes detailed epidemiological investigations to identify where there may be common exposures, common risk factors, or links between the various cases in these children.
Thank you,
The
Honorable Minister.
WHO recommends that we should just up our surveillance, and so we're busy with that as advised. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. The first supplementary question will be asked by Honorable T.B. Munyai.
Thank you, the Honorable Chairperson, and thank you, the Honorable Minister. Given the global community is making strides in this area by countries that have anti-pandemic policy, what is the circumstances that will be suitable for concerted program towards mitigating risk regarding the issue of acute hepatitis of unknown etiology? Therefore, how do we have an agile surveillance and response capability as a country? Thank you, the Honorable Chair.
Thank you. Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member, and Honorable Munyai, and Honorable Chair. The Honorable Members, as I've indicated, that in this particular case, as it is in various infectious and also non-infectious diseases, any emerging diseases, we work under the auspices of the World Health Organization. So there are standard guidelines in terms of how we communicate and how we manage this, how we monitor. And I've already indicated that as of now, The Africa region has not identified a single case, but together with, under the auspice of WHO, working with all other regions, we continue to monitor. So there is a high alert amongst our laboratories, amongst our, as the NICD has already circulated. So in terms of surveillance, in terms of making sure that if it does happen, we don't miss it, we do have the necessary systems in place. Even our standard guidelines in terms of hepatitis for adults, but especially also in this case for children. The standard guidelines which all our health facilities know they need to undertake, if they are properly followed, we will be able to identify such cases and we will be able to intervene. So at this stage, it's more of upping our alertness, making sure that our surveillance is in place so that when it does emerge, we can be able to nip it in the bud, but there is no need for alarm at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. The next supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Wilson. Honorable Wilson, are you forfeiting your...
Chair.
Oh, from the House.
No, Chair, she is online, but she's saying that the host needs to unmute her as they've disabled unmuting.
Oh, okay. IT, can you assist on that? I'm sure she is now. Honorable members, we shall pass.
Chair, she is definitely online. She just needs to be unmuted. She's saying to me that that the system is muted.
But she can try and unmute herself first.
But the whip must take over.
No, honorable members, we shall proceed. Then we'll allow her when she's in the system as well. In terms
Okay,
of
so Chair, will you just try and sort it out and then come back to it at the end?
Can I do that? Thank you. The third supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Chirwa.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Minister, symptoms also associated with acute hepatitis include fever, fatigue, loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, dark urine, pale stools, joint pain, and jaundice, amongst others, right? However, with this knowledge being known to the department as per your communique on the 5th of May by government, there hasn't been a mainstreaming of testing as per your response regarding surveillance to ensure possible early treatment, as the public sector is even incapable of facilitating the most basic of vaccinations currently, like BCG, which is no longer available for children in clinics. Another clinic that's an example is Standerton, and all the local clinics in Dipaliseng and Mpumalanga. Noting this threat at bay, as per your admission as well, because now the NICD is also involved. Noting the commonality of these symptoms that I just gave you in children already as is, that are associated with the possibility of acute hepatitis in children. What has the department done that's geared towards strengthening response tools in local clinics that have healthcare worker shortages that affects distinct surveillance? I'm asking this because Precious today took her child to Mamelodi West Clinic and noted all these particular symptoms. They gave a grandpa. So I want to know which NICD surveillance tools you're referring to, because they are currently not the reality in the clinics you're speaking about.
Thank you. Honorable the Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Member. Well, as I've indicated in my response, and I can say also from my own practical experience, there are a host of infectious diseases which on face value presents the same. Fever, body aches, and a number of symptoms which basically, for instance, whether it's malaria, whether it's a COVID, whether it's a hepatitis, whether it's flu. So there are a lot of infectious diseases which basically, in terms of basic signs and symptoms, will be the same. Now, But each one of them, you will find, that's what in medicine we call differential diagnosis. So you have the same presentation, but if it's flu, you will be able to distinguish because of a particular feature which tells you this is mild, it's flu. If it's gastroenteritis, you'll be able to differentiate. You're going to ask, as a clinician, very specific questions and look for particular signs. If it's an adult, if it's a child, if it's, you know,
Point of
depending
order,
on the
Chairperson.
age.
I'm so sorry. Point of order.
Honorable Minister, let's hear the point of order. What's the point of order? The Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm sorry, but the Minister is digressing. We are referring to this particular issue, and he made mention of the NICD releasing a high alert communique. And I'm asking, how is this implemented? Because currently in our local clinics, people are being given grandpa when they have these symptoms.
Thank you.
So where does the high alert work?
All of
Thank you, Honorable Shiro. The Minister is responding. Minister, you may proceed. Honorable Minister, you may proceed.
And maybe let me just say to the honorable member, we don't give grandpa to babies.
There's no grandpa in clinic. It's only clinic, there's no grandpa.
We don't give grandpa to babies.
Honorable members,
Anyway.
order. Honorable
Order,
members.
Chair. Order, Chair.
Honorable Nyai, point of order. May you sit down, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, just take your
Honorable
seat, please.
Chair,
Honorable Minister, there's a point of order. May you take your seat. Honorable Nyai.
Honorable Chair, when the speaker is on platform, when you have asked a question, you don't disrupt the speaker. May that please be reversed.
Honorable members, order. The Minister is responding. Whether we are not satisfied with the question, I think is another issue. For now, the Minister will be allowed to continue with his response. You may proceed, Honorable Minister.
But they must not just come with
Honorable Chair, let me just round it up by saying, all that I'm trying to give is an understanding of the approach, that this is how a clinical manifestation presents. Now, the NICD is composed of people who are highly specialized in infectious diseases. So they pick up to alert clinicians in the circular which they sent to say, please be aware that over and above the normal other presentations, there is this particular new disease which is somewhere around, even though it's not been as yet picked up in our region, but it has been picked up in 5 other regions. This is the distinct manner in which this one presents. So please be on the alert. And when you find this, make sure that you check this and that and make further tests, including testing for the adenovirus. So that's basically what I'm trying to explain to the honorable member. That's how the system works. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Understand that.
Honorable Member Wilson, are you ready to ask your question, or you'll ask with a follow-up question? That's a second supplementary question.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairperson. Minister, in light of the current primary healthcare crisis in the country, where there is chronic under-resourcing, staff shortages, and the like, how are we ensuring that we are capacitating particularly primary healthcare facilities which are at the forefront and at the coalface of responding to a crisis like this, in order to make sure that we've got our finger on the pulse? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kwahube. Thank you very much for the follow-up. We've never denied the fact that our health services are under a lot of pressure, including right across the spectrum, right up to the primary health care levels. But we must also say that there's continuous efforts to beef up that capacity in terms of more training, and as already mentioned here, also support in terms of additional information. Also try by all means to beef up the staffing. So notwithstanding those shortcomings, there's a lot of sterling work which is being done, and both And what is key here, it's from the primary healthcare nurses to the GPs, the ability to be assisted and supported so that when there is a risk, you know, in this particular case, there might be something more than what meets the eye, and therefore I need to be able to refer. So that support and clinical, guidance all the time helps our primary healthcare staff, practitioners, to be able to differentiate across, and it happens every day. Whether even in the course of the 4 and 5 waves of COVID, our primary healthcare practitioners were able, on the basis of clinical presentation, to know that this presentation now, they will miss a few cases, but in most cases they will be able to, with the experience and clinical assistance and additional information, know that in this case I need to refer to a higher level, or I need to refer this patient for further testing. So this is notwithstanding that pressure. That's the continuous, education, medical education which is provided and which helps our staff to be able to differentiate different conditions and take appropriate action. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by Honorable MD Sengwa. Honorable Kayama Gata, IT.
Thank you, Honorable
You may proceed,
Chairperson.
Honorable Member.
Honorable Minister, is the risk more exaggerated in a rural or township community? What are the department's plan to take these measures mentioned, particularly to the rural communities? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sengwa. I must hasten to say, honorable members, I listened to my colleague earlier on, Minister Motshekga, indicating that some of the best performing schools are in the very rural areas where there is very minimum resources. I can assure you that some of our best performing clinics are in the very rural areas and in the townships. All that it takes is just to make sure that our frontline staff are supported, they are given the necessary relevant resources, and at every given time, given also additional information whenever there are risks like this. So what we need to make sure is that all this information, including from our expert bodies like WHO, from the NICD, I think the alert which you are bringing to us, we must make sure this information reaches the nursing sister at the very rural KwaNongoma. They must Ulundi, Rapahla, by village clinic sister. They must get that information so that they will not miss. So we accept the advice that we must make sure that we check that all this information reaches them and they've got the necessary tools to be able to make the diagnosis and refer that child to a higher level so that they can be treated. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Question number 388 has been asked by Honorable NQ Mvana to the Minister of Social Development. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And I wish to thank the Honorable Mvana for the question, and I must, Chairperson, indicates that looking at her today, she really represents the Heritage Month, and I'm hoping that all of us can represent Heritage Month for the whole month and all the time. Let me, Chairperson, start with indicating that as DSD portfolio, we are actively implementing the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, working with NGOs, government departments, and in all 3 spheres of government. and other relevant stakeholders, especially in implementing Pillar 4 of the National Strategic Plan, which deals with response, care, support, and healing. And I'm always adding, Chairperson, that it's not only just that, but also the empowerment of women, because the empowerment of women must be at the center of supporting them. And also in terms of healing, which encompasses sheltering, but of course we are contributing to other pillars as well. And the reason why we started from that point, Chairperson, is because we want an appreciation of the fact that gender-based violence is not something that can only be responded to by government, but it is something that we all have to contribute towards. And in prevention and rebuilding of social cohesion, integrated campaigns implemented at all institutions of higher learning are quite important for us. And that is Pillar 2, which is prevention and rebuilding of social cohesion. Pillar 3, which is justice, safety, and protection. We have developed and presented to Cabinet the Victim Support Bill. Pillar 4, response, care, and support and healing. A number of services by DSD in line with the mandate of providing psychosocial services, such as sheltering, gender-based violence command center, National Emergency Response Team. We also refer to Pillar 5, which I think is also very important, that is economic empowerment. We have, in the process of establishing partnership with CETAs for the support of victims in shelters. And Pillar 6 is with regard to research and information management. It will be recalled that Cabinet adopted an overall government program for the entire month of August. And as it is also said, it's not only just a month of August, we also think that we should be able to deal with this issue 365 days of the year. In the current financial year, the department has taken a number of steps to address the scourge, embarked on community dialogues, deployed additional social workers in 100 gender-based violence and femicide youth ambassadors and volunteers to intensify the integrated outreach program. We've also established partnership with NPOs, and again, at this point is a time when I need to thank the NPOs in particular who wake up every day and deal with these issues. By the way, in my view, it's not only the NPOs, it's also the members who are in this house. I'm aware of the work that is done by these members throughout the different political parties because, again, gender-based violence has got no political affiliation. It affects everybody. We established partnership with NPOs to provide a basket of services to victims of GBV, the Tutuzela care centers. We are providing financial support to NPOs and shelters. And here, Chairperson, I do want to indicate, as I always do, that we spend 82.2 billion per year in supporting NPOs. And therefore, I believe that that amount of money which is given to NPOs, we must see the value for that money. And those NPOs we are supporting must be an extension of the services that we give as a department. Finally, Chairperson, we also have upscaled the social behavioral change programs, because if we are not able to change behavior, not only of ourselves in the house, but in our homes, on our streets, in our communities, we'll never be able to deal with gender-based violence. We have everyday heroes, Gimoja, men as positive role models, Chomi, YOLO, which is you only live once, and trauma-informed interventions amongst others. In an effort to enhance services to assist victims of GBVF, DSD has secured... Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. The first supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Mvana.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me first thank the Minister for appreciating my traditional attire. Yeah, I will be like this throughout the month of Heritage. Minister, I hear you pointing at the amount of money that you are allocating for the, excuse me, for the social sector society. But what I would like to know, how is the department gonna secure enough funding for social partners, the ones that you have identified and also tell us about from the private sector? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think we do need to make the statement, as I indicated earlier on, that in order for us to be able to deal with the gender-based violence, we need to mobilize society overall, including the private sector. I do want to indicate that even from outside of the country, we get support. From the European Union, in partnership with the department, we're able to get 41 million, which is supposed to be used in response for gender equality and women empowerment. This is very important, but also with the health and welfare sector, we have the 100 ambassadors that I spoke to earlier on, who are supposed to focus on the hotspots on where gender-based violence is. We also have SANAC Global Fund, where we have managed to get about 36 million rands, which is supposed to assist us in psychosocial support. We also have the CARA funds, by the way, which is money that is ill-gotten, that is given to us. And then we use that for emerging organizations, because these NPOs that we are talking about, we might be able to give them the money, but fact is this: many of these NPOs and NGOs, particularly the ones that are in rural areas, it's hard for them to be able to qualify for this money, because we want to make sure that people are accountable. So we not only register them, we also make sure that there is training for them, so that the previously disadvantaged NPOs that never had the chance of running these NPOs are supported by the department. I thank you.
Thank you. The second supplementary question will be asked by Honorable B.S. Masango.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, your department is one of the leading departments in fighting GBVF. The collaborative work that you are doing, that is done by your department, and among others, the Department of Police, is to fight GBVF, not to fuel it. Do you think the recent unfortunate comments attributed to your colleague in Cabinet, the Honorable Minister Cele, served to ruin your efforts? If so, why? Thanks, Minister.
Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you, Honorable Masango, for that question. Firstly, I think the Minister himself has been able to respond to this question, and I can tell you the work that we do, not only with the Minister of Police, but the Women and Men in Blue, is a contribution towards ending gender-based violence. And I do want to say that we need to be able to be positive towards them, because if we consistently become negative and nitpick on what we want to use for political purposes, it might not serve the interests of the South African people. And I know, as a matter of fact, that the Minister is almost always the first one to arrive at places where there's been a gender-based violence and disaster. He is the first one to also communicate even to me when he gets to the places to say, here is a situation in this place. We know that myself and the Minister of Women, Youth and People with Disability and the entire of government must respond. So I think the Minister himself, having been asked the question, has adequately responded. And I also want to make it a point to say the Minister of Police, Minister Peggy Cele, is very supportive of the work that we do. We are also very supportive of the work that he does. But by the way, he doesn't work as an individual. He works with the collective of the police, both men and women in blue, who we must always also salute, because in the middle of those men and women in blue, we do accept there are those that don't do the right thing, but the majority of them, they wake up in the morning to protect the citizens of South Africa.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by Honorable P. Marais.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, a significant number of women who leave abusive relationships often return due to lack of financial standing, which is often enhanced by the fact that the abuser often has all of the economic and social standing and complete control over the family finances. Which program, if any, has the minister put in place to incorporate women who stayed in shelters for a prolonged period to sustain themselves financially in order to avoid going back to the same abusive situation? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you, Member, for that question. Firstly, I believe that as South Africa overall, the fact that we have so many shelters really should be a shame on us, because that money that we keep spending on shelters is part of the money that we should be spending on empowering these women. However, the reality of the situation is exactly what the Honorable Member is indicating, that many of these women run away from abusive environments, and therefore, as government and as a people, we are forced to have these shelters, have the shelters very close to where the women live, but also create a conducive environment for those women in those shelters. As a Department of Social Development, we encourage training within those shelters. We encourage support for the families, and we have, in some instances, we even extend the time that these people who are running away from abuse have to stay in the shelters. So, in short, my point of view is we need to work towards reducing shelters and work towards ensuring that women are safe in their homes. But safety in their homes starts with the programs that we have as a department that is related to families. What do we do as a Department of Social Development to support families so that families, women in their families, are protected? This is one of the programs that I've thought very important for the department, is to make sure that we have house to house, street to street, community to community support. Hence the need for us to make sure that we have as many social workers as we possibly can. And I know that the issue of social workers is a thorny issue at the moment in terms of how many can be absorbed by government and how many can be absorbed also by the private sector. But I fully agree with you. We need to upscale the programs that we have so that we can cover as many women and children as possible. But finally, we need to stop this violence against women and children. Then we won't have to be building all the shelters. We'll be building institutions of training for women. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Heron.
Thank you, House Chair, and thank you, Minister. The Minister's largely covered my supplementary question with her detailed reply with regards to the National Strategic Plan. I guess the only outstanding question then is, in terms of Pillar 4 and the department's responsibilities in the strategic plan, are there any outputs that have not yet been implemented by the Minister's department? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Honorable Member, for that question. I think it's unfortunate that it has to be in the long term, and the outputs we can only talk about outputs and impact when we see the difference and the impact in our communities. And I believe that, again, I go back to the fact that the outputs that we set out for ourselves and the impact thereof will not necessarily depend on Pillar 4 alone. It also depends on what does government overall do to create a conducive environment for women and children. And this, for me, I keep going back to it to say, what government does, whether it's health, whether it's education, whether it's transport, it all must contribute towards ensuring that we create the conducive environment for women and children. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Question number 436 has been asked by Honorable Abrahams to the Minister of Social Development. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and I wish to thank the honorable member for that question. But before I even answer that question, one of the things that I think would be important for us as South Africans in general is to appreciate the manner in which we operate, and that is one, how Parliament itself operates, how government operates, because if we do, then we reduce a whole lot of unnecessary tensions that exist between ourselves. And therefore, this question, for instance, I will be answering it, and I thank the member for asking the question all the same. But to indicate to the member that the unfortunate part was that we never got the report ourselves, which, by the way, I must say to the member, I raised the issue with our department to say some reports might come to us directly because the person who's drafted the report makes it available to us. But we also need, as a department, to be proactive, because some reports you'll find them along the way when there's either a media query or something. This particular one did not come to our office until the time that we received the parliamentary question on the 31st of August. My office therefore made inquiries and obtained a copy of the report, which was received from Parliament on the 2nd of September. I so wish that the authors would have at least written to us and given us the report so that we can then have an opportunity of answering almost each and every of the issues that they raised at that time. Because this report, I now learned only after receiving the report that was sometime in May that the report was done. And so I appreciate the contents and the findings emanating from the investigation, as it highlights pertinent issues which impact on the implementation of the Social Service Professions Act 1978, as amended, the Children's Act, and sector funding policy. This report will have to be processed by the department, and we will have to respond to it. I have a preliminary response to almost all the areas which they raised, but I would rather we give them a fully fledged report that gives all the answers in accordance to the questions that they're raising here. And finally, Chair, I do want to indicate that while the report represents what the researchers found out there, in as far as I'm concerned, I want to make the statement that, one, the majority of our social workers and the people who are out there, including the department, they do the best that they can. And if there are witnesses somewhere along the line, let us be informed so that we can be able to respond adequately. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by Honourable A.L.A. Abrahams.
Thank you, Chairperson. So, Minister, perhaps you and your office need to check your emails, because I have it on good authority that Solidarity wrote to you on the 28th of March and the 14th of April, and because you failed to complain to complaints about the social workers, ignoring the plight of social workers, that this research was undertaken. And it was undertaken with a group of social workers, predominantly in NGOs, and 42.5% work in childcare. Yet these social workers face daily challenges and obstacles by DSD. No cooperation and support, poor service delivery, terrible communication, cannot get hold of DSD, poor handling of cases, problems regarding placement of children, incompetence, acting in their own interest and having political agendas. These are but some of the findings. Now, Minister, you've literally just answered in another question that NGOs are important in the fight against everything in social welfare, and that DSD is heavily reliant on them to fulfill its mandate. Yet this report shows a breakdown in the partnership between DSD and NGOs. To show your commitment, Minister, to the hard-working social workers and in the best interest of children, will you commit to tabling these findings of the report at your next mid-MEC to ensure that you not only hold your department and ADG accountable, but the provincial MECs and the HODs as well?
And Minister, I believe the social development has only had one mid-mic this year in March, so I do hope the next one will be soon, because this is urgent, Minister. And as I said before, this pertains to childcare, and we've all seen the latest crime statistics, which have shown significant increases in the crimes against children. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Abrahams, and it's always a pleasure to listen to you. It's always a pleasure to have you in the committee. If there's one thing I can assure members, these are the members that hold us accountable in the committee without any favor. You can smile, it's a fact, and it is the truth. It is the truth. And one of the things that I have said all the time, whenever, and by the way, I never miss the committee. I never miss the time for answering questions. I never miss the committee meetings because I have absolute confidence in the fact that the members, the majority of them, they will always raise issues that are related to the pain of our people. So your request right now to say that you would want us to present this report, for me it is immaterial, the scope with which they had and who did they ask, that for me is irrelevant. What is important is that there is a section of people who believe in what they wrote in the report, and there is a section of people who were interviewed, and that was their response. What is very relevant for me is, what am I going to do about it? And I can assure you, we will firstly, we will respond to the questions that are being here. Secondly, we will take it to wherever it is necessary for it to be taken, because when all is said and done, it ain't about me. It ain't about anybody. It is about the people that are assembled there who actually raised the concerns, and that's what I will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Honourable members, the second supplementary question will be asked by Honourable N.K. Bilankulu. Honourable Bilankulu. We shall pass, and for now, while the party whip will check on her, the third supplementary question will be asked by Honourable L.H. Aris.
Thank you, Chair. I will take the question on behalf of Member Aris. Minister, noting the shockingly high number of orphans in our country, which measures have been put in place to absorb the equally high number of unemployed social workers, so as to deal with the shortcomings experienced by children in accessing foster care service, such as a foster social care grant? Thank you, Chair.
Excuse me, Chair, I can't hear the member because there's an echo in the house.
Okay. Honourable member, if you kindly just sit down, so probably a little bit tall for the mic.
It is the ANC people that's making a noise, Chair.
Excuse me?
It is the ANC people making a noise behind the minister.
Honourable member, can you just come closer to the mic? That will assist. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. You know, we are very disciplined.
No, honourable members, order, honourable members. Allow the member to ask a question. Honourable Minister, you'll listen. If you don't hear, you'll respond either way.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Minister. I really appreciate the Minister's effort that she's doing, because I'm in a committee and I'm working with her, and it's always a pleasure working with her. Minister, noting the shockingly high numbers of orphans in our country, which measures has been put in place to absorb the equally high number of unemployed social workers, so to deal with the shortcoming experiencing by child in accessing foster care service, such as a foster social care grant? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member, for that question. And again, permit me to generalize from a point of view of dealing with why do we have so many orphans? Why is it that people children who are supposed to be in homes, children who are supposed to be in an environment that is conducive for them. It's not the case. I do want to indicate, Chairperson, that the current economic conditions, the current social ills and social challenges that we have, we end up with this situation that we're finding ourselves in. And by the way, it reminds me also, Honorable Member, that, and Minister of Health is here. One of the issues that sometimes I think we're beginning to lose sight of is the HIV and AIDS and the impact of it and the loss of parents thereof. And I think we need to bring that back, because it will help us again to make sure that whatever programs we have in place are responsive to that challenge. So that's the first approach for me as a Minister of Social Development. What are the preventative measures that we can have in place to have less orphans? But sometimes parents die of accidents and die of a whole range of things, and therefore, as a Department of Social Development, the placement of these orphans, firstly within the communities, is of utmost importance, because when you place them within the communities, and I like what the Northwest actually is doing a lot, because you find that they've got some of the orphans are placed within homes within the community. So when the children have to go to school or have to go and play, they are not placed in isolated places where it is said that's a place for orphans. And we want to encourage that as a department, but also remember that we have even increased the amount of money to caregivers so that they can at least have adequate support, financial support, which therefore also adds to the basket where children have to be fed. Lastly, we would like to encourage those who can to actually adopt some of these children. And I know that sometimes even the adoption processes are very difficult. We need to try and make them as easy as possible. But finally, we would like to see more and more children in homes, in proper homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Bilankulu, are you ready to ask your second supplementary question, or you'll stand in on her behalf?
I'll take it for Honorable Bilankulu. Thank you, Minister, for the response. What interventions are being made by the department in this financial year to ensure that social workers and NGOs are well-resourced to perform their duties, noting the impact of COVID-19 on their capacity to respond to the issues in communities? Thanks.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member, for that question. Let me start by saying that the question of social workers and the long, endless disputes and discussions, let me make this very clear. A few weeks ago, it was said the Department of Social Development is being discriminatory because it is only looking at the social workers who have been trained by the Department of Social Development. That isn't fact. We cannot discriminate against any social worker trained by the department or trained outside of the department. We have to do everything we can to absorb the social workers. The next step that we also took was to engage with the Department of Finance, who finally requested us to submit a proposal that indicates exactly, because we've been saying so many times, we need about 55,000 or more social workers in South Africa, because again, I go back to the issue that I feel if we are to make an impact on the social ills that are facing South Africa, we need more social workers in schools, we need more social workers in communities. I mean, you go to difficult schools where there's violence, there's bullying, there's all that, you find there's only one social worker. And how does one social worker deal with that difficult situation? And therefore, the absorption must not be understood to be something that has to be done by the Department of Social Development alone. The police need social workers, health needs social workers, education needs social workers. So the strategy that we're developing now is to say, who else do we go out to and request that they absorb the social workers? Free State did a very good job, because during the time of COVID-19 and beyond, they had social workers whom they absorbed, and ultimately they hired them full-time. We're hoping that most of the provinces will do exactly the same thing, but also we call on the private sector to also come on board with this, because social work is not only just about people who are in poor places. We must never make that mistake. We ourselves sometimes need the social workers because psychosocial support is needed by everybody in society. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by Honorable van der Merwe.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Thank you very much, Minister, for raising the plight of social workers. And the plight of social workers was recently again brought to the fore when unemployed social workers marched to the union buildings. And I thank you for outlining your plan to absorb more social workers. However, this plan that you just spoke to now is the same plan that your department presented to our portfolio committee on Wednesday, 21 October 2020, when they reported, and I quote, that despite a cabinet resolution in 2018, government departments have not been employing social worker graduates, and that the department has engaged Treasury for additional funds. Would you therefore agree that the plan that you are alluding to now is the same plan that you tabled to us in 2020? And why has nothing been done to see to it that government departments, the one that you've just outlined, like Home Affairs or Police, Justice, Health, why have they not complied with government's directive to employ social workers?
Are you done? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and I wish to thank Honorable van der Merwe for the question. Yes, we as a department are not really happy with the fact that the absorption of the social workers throughout the departments that have to absorb them has not been done. However, I do want to indicate, honorable members in the House, without a budget, it will be very difficult for any of the departments to absorb them. But I think what has also happened is that the conditions and the times, and everyone appreciating the fact that the social ills that we are facing is something that all of us need to make an input into it. And the fact that the Department of Finance has asked us to present this strategy to them with the purpose of ensuring that we look at the budget is the difference. Because you can have a plan, and if it's a good plan and it's not being implemented, you need then to go out and see why is it not being implemented. Now we know partly of why it is not being implemented, and the fact that we've been asked to present the strategy right up to Treasury itself, and members of the executive, they know. The President himself has spoken about this matter and said to us all, relevant departments, this must be done also on the basis that if it is done, it will reduce the numbers of people who are unemployed. And therefore, the strategy towards ensuring that we increase the number of people to be employed also includes the social workers. And to the social workers out there who are doing the best that they can, we thank you for it. And we say to you, we'll keep doing the best that we can to make sure that everybody who is a social worker is covered without any form of discrimination. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, question number 422 has been asked by Honorable Motshekga to the Minister of Basic Education. The Honorable Minister.
No, thank you very much, Chair, and thanks for the question. The question, unfortunately, cannot be fully responded now because the restrictions were dropped in May 2022, and we don't do returns any time of the year. So we'll only be able to compare 2022 with 2023. So what I can do to share with the member is to give her statistics of 20 to 2021, because we'll only have returns for 2022 in 2023. In terms of the returns of 2020, in 2021, because we only do them in January after the 10 days account. In 2021, we had almost 46,000 less learners, especially in the primary schools. And our understanding was that parents delayed sending kids to school in 2021 because the pandemic was still very aggressive. But we also then experience declines in grade 9, and now declines in grade 9 are sometimes a general problem because we do lose a number of learners when they move from basic to further education and training. So in all, if you compare what we have in 2020 and 2021, it's clear that the pandemic didn't have a major impact in learner dropout because those learners that delayed coming to school in 2021 were sent in 2022, and which means some of them are a year later, but they were sent back to school in 2022. But we don't have statistics for 2022, 2023 at this stage, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Van Zyl. Originally, it was written Honorable Siwela, and now it's written Honorable Van Zyl.
Thank you. Minister, the education system in South Africa was failing learners long before COVID pandemic hit. Although dropout rates and poor performance can be linked to the after effects of COVID in South Africa. Well, you've been asked today to speak to the school enrollments. Of greater concern is the number of children who are dropping out of school. We know that only approximately 50% of children who start grade 1 finish grade 12, and much of this is attributed to the high dropout rates. We need urgent action from this government to put education of this country and its children at the highest priority. Education provides opportunity, and in a country where the majority of young people has no prospect, it is a worthy investment. Education is the best possible vehicle to empower South Africans and to develop our country. What is the government's plan to address the decline in school enrollments and dropouts? Minister, let the children learn. Thank you.
Point of order, Chair. Chairperson.
No, 1 second, Honorable Mashabela, you'll come back. Let me allow the minister to respond.
No, Chair, let me thank the member for the self-righteousness that she displayed, but agree with the principles that we are all agreed on. That even as a governing party, it was not a mistake to say education is a priority. We are where we are with major problems because the majority of people in this country were denied education. So I don't want to get there, but fully agree with what she's repeating in a tone of self-righteousness. But I'm saying, Chair, the question wanted to check if there were impacts of dropout rate in terms of when the restrictions were dropped. And I've said the statistics for 2022 will only come in 2023. And that's the answer I have. But thanks for the self-righteousness, which I agree with on principle.
Thank you. Honorable Mashabela, my apologies, your turn.
Apology accepted. House Chair, Minister, over the past 10 years, there have been a consistently high level of school dropouts, such that while we consistently register more than 1 million learners for grade 1 each year, almost half of this number, right, they are grade 12 exams. While COVID must have impacted on this, but we have a general problem of learners who drop out of school. Minister, what are the underlying causes of this? And what have you done to address it? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister, you may respond.
Chair, and the underlying causes that the member raises are varied. Yes, because the statistics you are giving me are statistics that I give out every year to the public. But some of the underlying causes, which members I think are very aware of, it will be parental and societal pressures, because you do see trends differ in different communities. It will be levels of class or of poverty. It will be curriculum challenges that we are addressing, because that one is facing us. But it will also be issues of teenage pregnancy, which are not in our control, as societal issues, questions of youth criminality, against societal issues. So rather than to say, Minister, what are you doing? It's a question of what are we doing as a nation to protect our children, because some of the factors that affect them in schooling especially when they become teenagers and bigger from grade 9 to 10, are societal issues. And that's where we have to hold hands together, because as I say, teenage pregnancy is not an educational issue. Youth criminality is not an educational issue. Yes, curriculum issues are an educational issue. So what it means, all of us, Mema Shabel, and not as education alone, as if it's only education which has the responsibility for the development and the growth of our children. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Suwela.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Minister, a family plays an important role in supporting and raising children, while other children can be in a non-supportive family environment. How does the department work with the parents or guardians of learners who are identified to have not enrolled or those reported to have dropped out? Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
Chair, basic education is compulsory up to grade 10. So from the FET is not compulsory by law. But what schools do out of their own volition or out of their own sense of responsibility, visit homes, try and trace out why learners are not there. But that's the stage where it's really a major community issue. So in grades which are from grade 1 to grade 9, schools have a responsibility to follow up, work with social development, work with all different agencies to make sure that indeed kids are enrolled. But if sometimes, as I say, it's teenage pregnancy and families are holding them back, all we can do is to have a policy which allows them to return. If it's youth criminality, what we do, we take schools and lessons to prison. But basically...
Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.
No, Honorable Minister. IT, just remove that member, please. Just remove her. Thank you.
So I'm saying,
proceed.
Yeah, so in short, Chair, I'm saying, depending on what the circumstances are, schools and committees intervene. Even governing bodies sometimes assist us in terms of tracing learners who are not seen to be coming to school. So most of the time, if you go to schools, schools will tell you which children have dropped out, what they have done, and what have been the difficulties. So we don't fold our hands and say they're gone, they're gone. We do whatever is possible to bring them back to school, especially in the basic education, which is compulsory up to grade 10. And that's where we have the legal obligation to do something about it.
Thank you,
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The last question will be asked by Honorable Ngobo.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I will take the question for Honorable Ngobo. Honorable Minister, are there any mechanisms or measures that have been put in place by your department to address and engage learners post-COVID to ensure that their extended absenteeism from school due to the pandemic has not affected their ability to learn in a classroom? And if that is not the case, what is the position of the department? And if you have done that, what have these measures been and how effective are they?
Thank you. Honorable the Minister.
Chair, we've gone public about what is our strategy post-COVID, and it has different pillars. But the basic principle is to acknowledge that indeed in 2020, especially in your poorer community, there's an average of 70% time loss. In 2021, we have an average percentage of 50% loss. And that has forced us to say, what is our recovery program? So we have a recovery program which we are looking at. We have a build back program that we're working on. There's a reboot program, but a consolidation. So the first starting point is to acknowledge that indeed COVID has impacted negatively on learning in different areas, at different levels, and in different proportions. And therefore, we have developed strategies, which I say have got 5 pillars. We have developed strategies, assessment strategies, teaching strategies, rolling out the resources to make sure that we can claw back what was lost in in 2020 and 2021. So there are strategies in place and we're working on them because we can't pretend that we didn't have serious learning losses during the period of COVID.
Thank you.
And that's what guides our work now. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Question number 389 has been asked by Honorable Sihlwai to the Minister of Water and Sanitation. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I will be responding to the question on behalf of Minister Mkhulu. The root cause of the Nelson Mandela Bay water crisis has several challenges and combinations that we have identified. The inconsistent rainfall within the Algoa system, which are the major dams, is one of the things that actually makes water to be scarce in that particular area. Nelson Mandela Bay Metro is also unable to reduce the demand within the restricted levels required for the allocation for domestic use. The unforeseen delay and slow...
Honorable Minister, 1 second, my apology for that. You are disappearing slightly. Just face the camera so that we can see your whole face.
Thank you very much. I'll do that. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much.
Honorable members, Honorable Minister, we want to see your whole face, not half of it. If you can just sort out that part. Deputy Minister, you may proceed.
Can you see?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I was saying that Nelson Mandela is unable to reduce the demand for domestic use, and therefore this is one of the things that we are seeing as a challenge. And there has been delays in the implementation of the drought intervention projects, which actually has seen the restricted volumes which actually has been put because of the high demand being unable, the Metro being unable to can deal with that. And we also need to indicate that there are challenges with the governance in the municipality comprising of water services functions, and therefore these are some of the issues which actually we have seen. But, Honorable Member, let me indicate that the intervention which the department has implemented has been to avoid the day zero, is that the minister has also made sure that there are communication strategies which are put forward for the communities to can be able to deal with the issues, political and technical issues that has been dealt with by the minister. We have also implemented the Section 63 of the Water Act of 1997 so that the council can be able to deal with the issues, including the support to the Metro, so that as we are dealing with this, we're also involving the Amatola Water Board to can be able to assist in this. Chairperson, let me also indicate that the Nooitgedacht Dam, since March, has been able to contribute towards the Nelson Mandela Bay by bringing in 70 megaliters of water into the Nelson Mandela Bay. And we believe that going forward, there will be additional which will be able to come in. We are also making sure that we are providing groundwater to augment what we are doing in Nooitgedacht, and also making sure that the municipality is dealing with the challenges of the leaks, because there has been a number of infrastructure that is being repaired, and I would indicate that over 9,000 leakages has been dealt with in that. And I can also indicate that only last week, 88 of the households have also received assistance with respect to the leakages and repair of the infrastructure, so that we can be able to sustain and maintain water in that particular area. Chairperson, let me indicate that we are working very close with the municipality in terms of making sure that the engineers are there. We're working very close also with National Treasury to make sure that the underspending which has been there, we augment working with Treasury so that they can be able to spend properly. And then in the end, we believe that we can be able to reduce the underspending that is there. And finally, Chairperson, I need to indicate that with the challenges that has been there, working with other organizations, we have been able to bring in tankers for emergency delivery of water in Nelson Mandela Bay. And we believe that from time to time, we definitely will be able to look into what are the issues, where can we make intervention. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable the Deputy Minister. Honorable members, the time of questions have expired. However, we'll take the first supplementary question and will request members to do the other questions in writing for the Minister to respond to. Honorable Sushlaya, you will ask the Honorable Kwahube.
Chairperson, this has been a topic of discussion many times in the House, that when a question has been put, that we follow through with the question. So there are 4 follow-up questions, but you've indicated that there will only be 1 follow-up question.
Honorable members, we said we are going to finish the question, and the Deputy Minister has responded. Now I'm calling for the first supplementary question. I'm still in line. Yes, we'll finish, we'll complete the whole questions, yes. I just notifying the House that the time for questions has expired. Okay. Honorable Sihlwai, the first supplementary question.
Thank you, House Chair. A follow-up question on the question that have been raised and well answered by the DM. Climate change is a reality in our society, and it's a global phenomenon that has been demonstrated by the long droughts and exacerbated water scarcity, which has a negative impact on the availability of fresh water in our towns. Having made the interventions that the DM has raised in Nelson Mandela, what lessons that are sustainable that has the department drawn from such experience to ensure that water security through a water mix is established? Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me indicate that as the Department of Water and Sanitation, climate change is here with us, but we need to indicate that working very close in Nelson Mandela, part of the things that we have realized is the fact that working together, particularly with the communities, but also looking into other new issues that we can be able to infuse, like desalination, making sure that we have boreholes, but also of importance is working with, when we work with the communities, dealing with the challenges of loss of water, because there has been 45% almost in Nelson Mandela where water is being lost, and now that we are fixing the leaks, we definitely believe that those water will be augmented. But education is a very important thing that we must make our communities understand, that there is demand and supply, and therefore the more they demand water, the more we should be able to say, how do we now, as a people, make sure that we don't become wasteful. And as we educate our people about preservation, and conservation of water. We must also make sure that we work and make our water resources, in particular, our rivers. We clean our rivers. We go around our springs, our wells, and everywhere. We make sure that we're able to deal with these things so that we can be able to contribute towards offsetting the challenges that we're seeing of climate change. Because you'll see in some areas there's flooding, in some other areas there's drought, and we need to work together to can be able to deal with these challenges. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Mayberg.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, the corrupt and incompetent government at Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality received the princely sum of 58 million rand from COCTA in February of this year to upgrade pump stations in order to increase the transfer of water from 90 to 120 megalitres per day. Now, unsurprisingly and predictably, this project is still incomplete and the water crisis is far from over. What will your department do to assist in averting day zero? What meaningful and practical and sustainable steps will you do to help this clearly incompetent and inept municipality? Specifically, would you, for instance, consider implementing not only Nooitgedacht Phase 4, but would you look at a more affordable desalination of seawater, or would you opt for the most cost-effective solution, namely wastewater reclamation? Please tell us, Deputy Minister, which of these options would you employ to provide much-needed help to the patently inept management at that municipality? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I have already indicated that we're looking at every aspect where we can be able to say we deal with the challenges of water, including dealing with the challenges of grey water that we are able to reuse, but also I've indicated that there is desalination and every other idea that and implementation that we can be able to put into use, Honorable Member, we are definitely dealing with it. I think, Honorable Member, the Minister of Water and Sanitation, plus the Minister of National Treasure are looking into several things, and amongst other things that we're looking into is to make sure that we implement and monitor everything. Let me indicate that, Honorable Member, for sure, you should be aware of the fact that we have already implemented Section 63 of the National Water Act of 1997, so that we can be able to make intervention where there is necessary. But critical is we need to make sure, ensure that the public fund is not used in a manner that is not befitting. And that is why we're working with the National Treasury, and that is why we're working with the Minister of COCTA to make sure that in the end, we can be able to bring proper governance in all the municipalities that are having challenges. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Heron.
Thank you, House Chair, and thank you, Deputy Minister. I think Deputy Minister has broadly addressed the climate events like flooding and droughts that our country experiences, and the Eastern Cape and the Nelson Mandela Bay is the most recent one that has prominence. But if the Deputy Minister could address the remaining, or one of the last remaining damming opportunities that has been talked about and considered for the last 60 years, but not yet implemented, despite it being announced twice as an important water project, the Imzimvubu Dam project in the Eastern Cape. Where is that project, Minister, and when will we start to see some real progress being made with regards to that damming project. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. This is work in progress. I need to indicate that already there is work that has started, and probably we should be able to come and report to Parliament how far we have progressed. But one of the things that has started is to make sure that there are access roads that are able to deal, to go into where the dam will be situated. And I need to also indicate to Honourable Member that the Minister, together with the Premier of Eastern Cape, are hard at work to make sure that in the end, we should be able to see progress. But I can indicate that there is work which is going on. We have started with the access roads, which actually can be able to contribute towards the Umzimvubu Dam, as we are intending to can be able to make construction of that dam. But we need to indicate that this is one of the things that actually is highly challenging, particularly for the people of the Eastern Cape, and in particular government of the Eastern Cape, but also the government of the Republic of South Africa. But there is work that is going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Gia. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable G. Hendricks.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair. Honourable House Chair, thank you to the Deputy Minister for standing in for the Minister, and to thank the Minister for the special efforts in that what he's doing to prevent day zero. However, I have visited 3 times, once with the Portfolio Committee, and the Deputy Minister is quite correct about the poor governance, not only from the officials in the metro, but also the councillors of all political parties. Just there's no proper oversight. They don't hold anyone accountable. Portfolio Committee visited there. They didn't even have the decency to meet us, although we were there 2 days, including the mayor. But the problem there is that there is enough water. The rivers supply enough water to the dams, so that can reach the water treatment plants, which have the capacity. The problem, House Chair, is that 60% of the water is stolen by the farmers for oranges.
Honourable Member, thank you very much. The time is up. The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. We are working very close with the
Honourable
law.
Members. Honourable Members, can you lower the tones, please? Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. We are working very close with the law enforcement agencies, and one of the things that we throughout the country is that when people are using more than expected with respect to the because there's water use licenses which actually get given to people. If you are harvesting or using more water than is expected, we're working with the law enforcement agencies, and definitely the user pay principle will be there. But one of the things that we make sure is that we institute and work with the law enforcement agencies so that people do not abuse, because indeed, like Honourable has indicated, water is there, but there is abuse and theft of the water in many areas. So therefore, let me indicate and assure members that throughout the country where we find that there is abuse of the resource, we make sure that we work with the enforcement agencies to can be able to cap that. And one of the things that I can be able to indicate, Honorable Member, is that the municipalities also have got bylaws wherein we insist that the municipalities should be able to use their bylaws and be able to inform, work together with us so that we can be able to know where are we finding challenges with respect to utilization of water. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Honorable members, the time allocated for questions has expired. Outstanding replies received will be printed in Hansard. The Secretary will read the first order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Social Development on Children's Amendment Bill.
I now recognize the Honorable the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I move that the report be adopted. Thank you.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
Could you please note the objection of the Democratic Alliance, Chairperson?
Noted.
Chairperson, also the objection of the FF Plus.
Noted.
Chairperson,
Anna Being Carter, Freedom Party.
Noted. Noted.
And of the IFP, Chairperson.
Noted, Honorable Member.
And the ACDP, thank you, Chair.
Noted, Honorable Member. Thank you very much. The report agreed to. The Secretary will read the last order of the day.
Second reading debate, Children's Amendment Bill.
Now invite the Minister of the Honorable the Minister of Social Development to the platform.
Oh, by the way, thank you very much, Chairperson. Ngibonge kakhulu ithuba lokuthi ngipresente namhlanje kulendlu le ehloniphekileyo. Angazi ukuthi ngesizulu kuthiwani second reading yini. Ngicabanga ukuthi isifundo sesibili se debate. Isifundo sesibili se debate on the Children's Amendment Bill. Chairperson, ama language wethu nayo kuyafuneka ukuthi ke sithi ukwanyusa because kuyafuneka ukuthi masila phambi kwalendlu sikwazi ukufunda njengoba ibhalwe njengoba i-right ngesizulu. Singenzi nje i-quick translation la. By the way, may I say ukuthi nje ngeSwahili, if besikhuluma iSwahili abanayo le language, sekukhona science, technology konke. Nathi kufuneka siye lapho, Chairperson. It was exactly 2 years ago on the 31st August 2020 when I introduced the Comprehensive Children's Amendment Bill B18 of 2020 pursuant of amending the Children's Act of 2005. The strategic intent of these amendments are to, 1, strengthen the protective measures that are designed to defend the interests of vulnerable children through the coordinated provision of care and protective services. 2, address the gaps and challenges in the current child care and protection system by identifying the strategies with which these challenges can be addressed. 3, respond to the 2017 North Gauteng High Court order in which the Minister of Social Development was directed to prepare and introduce before Parliament, and I quote, a comprehensive legal solution regarding the foster care system, close quote. Hey, and we went through a tough time on this one. Members of the committee will tell you that. An economic rendition of these strategic objectives is that the rich formulation of the amendment bill flows from the children themselves, parents, caregivers, public representatives who are members of the Honorable House, practitioners and experts, as well as the researchers. While their combined immediate effect has been to nudge resources inefficiencies at the level of government, as well as where partnerships are concerned, these inputs are strongly informed by the spirit that seeks to manifest the safety of each child and provide a sense of belonging and prompt a common prosperity for all South Africans, particularly children, as our society is restructuring our economy towards recovery and sustained growth following the series of economic, health, and climate shocks that we are grappling with. Through this understanding, for today's children, the amendment bill is the embodiment of their imminent economic productivity. Honorable Chair of the House and members, please be reminded that the bill that I introduced 2020 contained 147 clauses. The bill that is before you today comprises only of 14 clauses. The Honorable House will be requested to consider, debate, and deliberate the remaining clauses at a later date. Now, the bill focuses exclusively on foster care-related clauses and directs itself to addressing the North Gauteng High Court insofar as the provisions and administration of foster care are concerned. The bill that is before you fast-tracks the foster care-related clauses in order to meet the November 2022 deadline that was set by the North Gauteng High Court. To this end, the relevant amendments to the Children's Act 38 of 2005 and the Social Assistance Act of 2004 have either been finalized or promulgated. Relevant to today's debate is that following the 2019 State of the Nation address, in his address, Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, earlier on the 1st of April of this year, I migrated the early childhood development function to Minister of Basic Education. Another of the matters of relevance is that majority of orphans are cared for by relatives who are often willing to adopt them in order or become their guardians. Than being restricted to seek guardianship from the High Court, the bill makes provision for guardianship matters to be heard and adjudicated by the Children's Court as well. This amendment will ensure accessibility and promote equitable access to justice. My gratitude goes to the Portfolio Committee on Social Development and the committee's support staff for their ongoing engagement and guidance on the matters that are relevant to the bill. I'm grateful for their tireless work and personal sacrifices and expertise that they invested towards the public hearings and internal meetings that brought the bill thus far. I commend you all for being the true representatives of the people. I support this bill as it is, together with the Social Assistance Amendment Act, serve to address the challenges facing the foster care. The department will be very happy when this happens because they went through a lot of pain, but it was necessary pain. I thank you, Chair. I thank you, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Lokhu ukufundwa kwesibili kwenkulumo mpikiswano. Yeah. The Honorable Mvana.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Nam ndingena kule ngxoxo mpikiswano. The Children's Act is the legislative framework for child protection serious in the country. It was thus crucial for the committee to exercise the diligence as it processed the amendment bill. It conducted an extensive legislative process. Let me first give you a bit for Mahala in terms of what is this bill that we're talking about. Excuse me. It is the temporary placement of a child who is in need of care and protection with foster parents or guardians of a children in terms of the court order issued by the presiding officers of the Children's Act. Thus ensures that these children are taken care of. The state provides a foster child grant. It is essentially a child welfare grant. Thank you very much. However, due to the devastating effect of HIV and AIDS, in early 20s, it was extended to accommodate children orphaned by HIV/AIDS. This reached the threshold and it increased in terms of the children that have to qualify for this foster care grant. With the aforementioned, it can be seen that the foster care grant system in the country has not then implemented in accordance to the purpose that we understand and fully aware of it, which is to provide financial support to the foster parent to care of the child up to 21 years. It has been provided to all children, including orphans, children or children whose whereabouts or of their parents are not known, not necessarily to children in need of care of protection only. The high number of children in the system created administrative challenges for both the department and the courts due to the shortage of the capacity, especially social workers. Social workers were overwhelmed with very high case loads for foster care. Limiting those time to provide protection serves for the children that are in need of foster care. As a result, for 2 yearly court orders that were there due to received for each court placement could not be processed, and this created a backlog. The past, this put the children a task of having these grants terminated. You know, when they are expired, the court sometimes has to terminate that foster care. However, with the 2011 North Gauteng High Court, this was averted. The court required the Minister of Social Development to design and implement a comprehensive legal action to the crisis in foster care system, and until solution is designed, foster care court orders would continue being valid. With a backlog both in court rules or in court orders that need to be reviewed, the new application as well as work oversized offering social workers and delays in the courts. The Children's Amendment Bill, together with the Social Assistant Amendment of 2020, which the committee passed in 2020, seek to provide a comprehensive legal solution that the court required. The Amendment Act empowers a minister of DSD to attend and additional payment, that is the top up that we're talking about, ufakelelo phezu kwemali le ibikade ikhona siphethe lo mcimbi ngoku. This aims to alleviate the pressure of the foster care system by diverting orphaned children who are not in need of care. The bill also provides for the court to extend court orders that have lapsed to make an interim order for a period of exceeding 6 months. You know, this question came up timelessly and time and again in the committee of what is it that is going to happen when the foster care has lapsed and expired. The bill emanated from a legislation by the Center of Child Law versus the Minister of DSD, the South African Social Security Agents, that is SASSA, and others of the North Gauteng. The minister has already said that we only focus on phase 1 of the bill. Then we will follow with the phase 2 of the bill.
Honorable
But
member.
because the court
Thank you very
has-
much.
The court has given us
Your
an
time
order.
is up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Masango.
Honorable Chairperson, the Children's Amendment Bill we are debating today is an 11-year-old opportunity to bring the best interest of the South African child back to the center of government services. It is a result of the agency by civil society who, horrified by no less than 120 vulnerable children losing their foster grants and 300,000 at imminent risk of also losing their grants, sought intervention from the courts. The North Gauteng High Court ordered the Minister of Social Development and DSD MECs to solve the crisis by producing a comprehensive legal solution by the end of 2014 and to create necessary mechanisms, structures, and resources to ensure that the foster care system operates in a sustainable and effective manner. 11 years, 4 ministers, and 4 reluctant extensions by the court later, we have yet again rushed a piece of legislation not to change the situation of children for the better, but to meet a deadline and prevent embarrassment for the ANC. Honorable Chairperson, the bill was an opportunity to change the environment within which foster care grants are paid, the reasons for that put children in that environment, and to come up with a solution that ensures vulnerable or orphan children can get a social grant quickly and children in need of protection have access to quality services by social workers and courts. This committee recently prioritized the Social Assistance Amendment Bill, which now allows the minister to provide a higher value child support grant of 720 Rand to these children quickly. The Children Amendment Bill was supposed to focus on the other part of the comprehensive legal solution by reducing the backlog in foster care order extensions. That opportunity has been lost in this amendment bill. The DSD and ANC Portfolio Committee members seem to think that by making an amendment that allows children's foster care orders to expire and then authorizing children's courts to extend them retrospectively, they have enacted a comprehensive legal solution. While this ensures children's courts eventually extend orders, it does not ensure SASSA will continue paying foster child grants after expiration of court orders, as the Social Assistance Act does not allow SASSA to pay foster child grants if a court order has expired, as this is against audit requirement. So, the solution DSD has come up with, happily rubber-stamped by the ANC Portfolio Committee members, only protects the department, but not the orphaned children who will now be at risk of losing their foster child grants when the North Gauteng High Court order ends in November 2022. Just recently, DSD reported a backlog of over 60,000 expired orders to the High Court that need extension in the next 2 months. Add to that a further 10,000 backlog each month that passes. It's likely the High Court order will have to be extended for a 5th time because the Minister, the Department, and ANC Portfolio Committee members did not put children's best interest ahead of their own. Claims have been made in this room that there is a committee bill to be processed to deal with the 100 sections of the Children's Amendment Bill that we had to temporarily reject to enable the 12 clauses to be rushed to meet the court deadline. Honorable Chair, if this straightforward bill has taken 11 years to come before this Parliament and 4 years to be passed by the National Assembly, who knows when the committee bill with no court-ordered pressure will see the light of day. History does not paint a promising future. Honorable Chairperson, the objectives of the bill are noble. They are what the Democratic Alliance as a caring organization would hope will be actually implemented. They are to strengthen protection of vulnerable children, address gaps and challenges in the childcare and protection system, and to respond to the High Court order relating to the foster care challenges. While we profusely want to thank the committee and Parliament officials for a job well done under immense pressure and COVID-19 restrictions, the civil society and interested individuals for making eye-opening submission, as the Democratic Alliance, we will not be supporting this bill, as doing so, we would be complicit
Thank you,
in
Honourable Member.
political expediency over the best interest of the child.
Your time is
Thank
up.
you, Chair.
Honourable Mara. Order, honourable members.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, the fight for the comprehensive legal solution to this problem of foster care or orphan or abandoned children goes way back many decades. It was back in 2002 when the late Dr. Solaskier announced that the foster care grant would be made available for relatives providing care for the orphan children. This was considered the devastation caused by the HIV/AIDS pandemic at the time. What the decision basically did was to create an unwritten policy for the Department of Social Development in relation in foster care in relation of orphan children. While there we have various irritation of policies, we need to provide a comprehensive legal solution to this problem has always been there. In judgment of SS versus presiding officer of the Children's Court, the South African High Court ruled back in 2012 that a child who has been orphaned or abandoned and who is living with a caregiver who does not have a common law duty to support towards a child, such a child, may be placed in foster care with that caregiver. That judgment only further served to prove that unless comprehensive changes are made to the entire system, there will continue to be inconsistency in the development of our common law. We are grateful to many of those cases which fought to have brought us closer to the solution, in particularly the Center for Child Law versus Minister of Social Development in 2017. We condemn the failure of the Department of Social Development to meet many of the deadlines for the amendment of this legislation to provide for the comprehensive solution to childcare problems in this country since 2017 judgment. In the latest session, Parliament is given until the end of November to have passed these amendments. This is now clearly impossible because there is no way the NCOP will have completed its work by November. Secondly, it is impossible to be done. So because the irregular process through which a bill was rammed through the Portfolio Committee. Chairperson, what ANC members did in the committee deserve condemnation from this Parliament, from those who are concerned with the plight of the children of the country. Firstly, the bill was obviously bloated because the committee chose not to confine itself with the question of foster care for abandoned or orphan children as directed by the court. Such at the end, the bill had 146 clauses. In the week leading up to the adoption of the bill, the ANC, together with the legal officers of Parliament, decided to adjourn 134 of these clauses without any substantiation or any focus of 12 clauses, only focus on 12 clauses. The ignorance, thousands of submissions by experts and activists is spaced and further provided assertion by the legal office of Parliament. It is an extension of the ANC. More critically, we object to the decision of the committee to renege on an initial agreement of amended Section 21 of the Act, which is in relation to the right of the unmarried fathers. The amendment was already approved by the Cabinet and accepted by activists for the rights of children. We are equally appalled by the committee decision to decided against the amendment of Section 24, which has allowed the Children's Court jurisdiction to hear issues relating to guardianship. This would have mitigated against the enormous and expensive route of High Court. The committee has also failed to deal with the centers of the quest to comprehensive legal solution to the problem of foster care. That is whether or not orphans in the care of families can be automatically assumed to be a need of foster care grant. This or should merely qualify with a child support grant. The failure of the committee to deal with these issues rendered the whole process a fertile and wasteful expenditure. The legal challenges of the basis of the irregular procedures. It saddens us, therefore, that we must reject the bill. The plight over 700 children under the care of relatives maintained undecided. So the legal certainty required by the more than 400,000 children receive foster care grant in this country. The ANC has failed children, the most vulnerable people of this country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable members, you're kindly requested to approach the podium on time so that you don't lose your seconds there and be economical about it. So once you are aware that you're going to take the podium, you can approach the podium on either side. There are chairs that are arranged for you. The Honourable Van der Merwe from the IFP.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honourable House Chairperson. House Chairperson, the Children's Amendment Bill before us today was born out of the sad reality that South Africa's foster care system had collapsed. In 2011, the North Gauteng High Court intervened and forced the then Minister of Social Development to find a legal solution to this crisis. Today, 11 years on, and multiple court order extensions later, we find ourselves with being asked to agree to a Children's Amendment Bill which was subject to a flawed process. But how did we get here? The bill in its original form, riddled with unworkable proposals, was referred to the Portfolio Committee in August of 2020. Its aim was to address gaps in the childcare system. With this bill in hand, the committee embarked on nationwide public hearings. In every community, we heard a uniform cry for help, of social workers in distress, of children suffering abuse because there's no system to protect them, of underfunded NGOs, of a department and country in crisis. This picture of a welfare system in distress led the committee to resolve to come back to these issues in a second amendment bill process. And so, with the court deadline looming, we opted to only deal with South Africa's foster care crisis and clauses pertaining thereto. However, what transpired after this decision can only be labelled a betrayal. During the clause-by-clause deliberations, we realized that we were working from old documents. Because we had said we needed to start afresh, having meant not working from old documents, the ruling party component now surprisingly knew nothing of the agreements we had previously made. At that point, we had already agreed as a committee to include and amend some clauses. And so our joint amendments were rejected after already agreeing to them. And even more bizarre, minutes were disowned, although recordings of our agreements are available. Amongst the significant amendments that were now rejected was Section 21. Section 21 was widely supported by the public during hearings. It clarifies the parental rights of unmarried fathers by allowing them to fulfill their joint parental responsibilities in respect of their children. Another significant amendment that was not actioned puts all children in alternative care at risk, as it allows their 2-year placement orders to expire. This will negatively affect children in child and youth care centers and in foster care, who need social workers to check on them every 2 years in order to stabilize their placements or to reunite them with their families. Now, many children might languish in institutions, rendering them more vulnerable. Equally of concern, Chairperson, is the fact that little to no attention was given to the rights of fathers, while it is clear that we are making laws in the absence of resources. We need at least 70,000 social workers, yet South Africa currently only has 17,500 social workers. Chairperson, today the attention of this House, and in particular the Speaker, must be drawn to the fact that during this process, Parliament's constitutional mandate to craft legislation and come up with solutions were undermined. In the end, we simply rubber-stamped something that was already given to us. We were reduced to spectators, and our vulnerable children, Chairperson, needed us to speak for them through this amendment bill. They needed us to put their well-being first. We needed to do justice to our vulnerable children. Instead, misguided interests prevailed. Our committee should never be one where personal, political, or the executive's preferences prevail. It should always be South Africa first, our children first, and the most vulnerable first. We thank the committee, civil society, and our support staff for guiding us and supporting us on this difficult journey. With all of these concerns as recorded, we cannot support what is before us. Hopefully, the second amendment bill will provide us an opportunity to do better.
Very much,
I thank you, Chair.
FF Plus, the Honorable Brett.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, not to be a preachy Penelope once again, but I'm extremely worried about this Parliament, the manner in which we conduct ourselves and the way we refuse to see one another's points of view. I'm worried about the way everything has become an ANC versus opposition struggle instead of a fight for the people. This amendment should have been for the children, for the most vulnerable that cannot speak for themselves, those that have entrusted us to be their voice. Instead, it was a battle of semantics, a battle between the ANC and opposition, a battle that will turn out to be a battle against the children. Although I'm not a permanent member of this portfolio committee, I tried to attend as best I could, give inputs and support where necessary and possible. The ANC, however, instead of welcoming an extra input, continually spoke condescendingly of my attendance. This does not speak of a healthy committee or atmosphere. The ANC members in this committee further abused their power, victimized members of the opposition, silenced them, misquoted them, put them down to such a point where there was no other option but to walk out of meetings. Because if words failed us, maybe actions would speak louder. This, unfortunately, only made the ANC more stringent in trying to spin the process and the bill their way. You will hear and have heard of the opposition's disdain for this committee or whatever excuse there will be gathered today. Chairperson, we are on dangerous terrain when a suggestion, a very good suggestion, that will lead to the betterment of the Act is rejected because it was not an ANC member that made the suggestion. One example of such is Clause 10, that deals with Section 21 of the Act. This speaks of the right of unmarried fathers. It was in the full bill, and all submissions agreed to this section, even DSD. It should have been included because many children orphaned or abandoned by their mothers are living with unmarried fathers. The amendment to Section 21 will help prevent these children from ending up in the foster care system. 90% of submissions supported Section 21 as tabled, yet the ANC bullied the committee into rejecting it. The committee received over 1,000 pages of submissions. Hundreds of organizations had proposed improvements. Meaningful suggestions that spoke of practical implications of the Act were made to try and address these matters, but to no avail. The bill, as it is here today, is flawed and does not speak to the actual challenges being faced within the foster care space. This bill has been pending since 2011, 11 years and 4 court order extensions later, only 2 months away from its latest deadline, and this bill has still not received the necessary attention and work. It has been such a long time coming that instead of focusing on what the court had ordered, this whole bill should have been revised by now. It took only half an hour for the committee to decide on these amendments. It was done without clause-by-clause analysis and without reference to public contributions. The committee did not strive for excellence with this amendment. In fact, they did not even achieve mediocrity. They achieved nothing. These amendments are not in the best interest of the child. Section 28(2) of the Constitution says, "In all matters concerning a child, the best interests of the child are of paramount importance." This committee did not do that. This process failed the constitutional mandate. The ANC have once again failed the children, and we will not support this amendment bill.
Thank you, Honourable Member. From the ACDP, the Honourable Frank.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. As I present this on behalf of Honourable Sukas, the ACDP views the Children's Amendment Bill as a critical response to the ongoing crisis in foster care, which has been placing vulnerable children at risk for more than a decade, precipitating the 2011 North Gauteng High Court ruling, instructing government to develop a comprehensive legal solution to the crisis. The ACDP believes that this bill is flawed, and chief amongst the failures has been the Department of Social Development's unjustifiable tardiness in creating this legislative solution some 11 years in the making. And as the latest court deadline approaches in November, pressure was brought to bear on Parliament to push the bill through, regardless of whether or not it solves the crisis and regardless of its impact on the vulnerable. Parliamentarians must develop legislation which creates meaningful change to those affected. In this case, the affected are our most defenseless citizens, the orphaned and vulnerable children. However, confusion around which clauses actually solve the problem in foster care and unwillingness to accept that other clauses in the original bill are of critical importance and should have been included in the final version, and interference from the executive resulted in the bill being pushed through with what some have called indecent haste. Despite extensive public consultation, political expediency led this bill being approved without clause-by-clause debate and without the committee considering all options for keeping children out of foster care, including allowing family care where there is a capable father. This can only be viewed as a failure to honor the democratic process that allows for every input to be duly considered, and when opposition parties protested, they were accused of politicking or delaying the bill. The resultant decision to exclude the amendments to Section 21 from the bill will have a significant impact. Though approved by Cabinet and widely accepted by civil society, the clause was considered too controversial and needing more consultation. However, by excluding it, the bill now fails to provide legal recognition and certification for unmarried fathers living with maternal orphans, which would enable them to protect and care for their children and act as their legal guardian. The consequence is that many maternal orphans will remain in the foster care system despite having a committed father eager to raise them. As the minority report shows, the parliamentary process has produced a bill that only partially delivers on its promise to solve the foster care crisis, a bill that still fails to enable unmarried fathers to keep their children out of foster care, and a bill that could potentially make obtaining assistance harder for some vulnerable children. As such, the ACDP considers this bill to be a missed opportunity and will not support it. Thank you, Chair.
UDM. Honorable Heron from Good.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Welcome, Honorable Heron. If you're struggling, we'll give you a chance. Maybe it will be okay. We'll give you a 10 next time. So I pass Honorable Heron. The Honorable Sheikh Imam from the NFP. The Honorable Msongo from the ANC.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. Before I begin, I should say that the mistake the opposition is doing is leaving meetings and coming to this platform and addressing issues that were supposed to be addressed in portfolio committees. Honorable members, Honorable members, it is said that many children in South Africa are physically and sexually abused by those close to them. Most children witness gender-based violence in their homes, where perpetrators are often people who they look up to and respect. We need to fight this together with society. Everyone has a role to play in protecting children from abusers so that their emotional health and development is not endangered. The ANC-led government is doing its best in ensuring that The ANC-led government is doing its best in ensuring that abused and abandoned children are safe and are taken care of. That is why through social development and basic education, the government is making sure that abandoned children are in homes and centers where they are safe and taken care of. And ECDs are there in helping with the development of a child at an early age. Honorable members, according to the Children's Institute based at the University of Cape Town, there were about 55,000 children living in a total of 33,000 child-headed households across South Africa in 2018. Factoring in the reality of COVID-19 pandemic over the past 2 years, these statistics have certainly increased. Additionally, Stats SA in 2022 present that the reality that nuclear households, which are households that contains of spouses, partners with or without biological children, comprised of 41.5% of all households. This suggesting that over 50% of households in South Africa are led by individuals, of which 42.1% are headed by women. These facts are worth noting, as they provide a perspective that we can use to better understand the state of children's vulnerability in South Africa. In a world that is characterized by the preying on children by criminals, perpetrators of violence, and human trafficking networks, it is critical that children are protected from such danger and harm. The scourge of alcohol and substance abuse is equally problematic, and children who are not properly cared for and protected are more at risk to pressure to participate in these behaviors, which condemn them to futures of further vulnerability, such as a reliance on crime and other illegal practices as a form of survival. Honorable members, it is important to note the importance of extended families and adoption of children in our country. The Children's Act has, over the years, provided a framework of enabling and providing vulnerable children with families and individuals who can adequately take care of them. The multiple inroads that have been made to this end are noteworthy and have served as an avenue to protect vulnerable children from the various social ills that plague our society. It is important to mention that the practice of adoption is not a foreign phenomenon, but a practice that has over the years created a safe haven for children whose parents were unable to take care of them as a result of many circumstances, including death. Extended families and the process of adoption therefore plays a fundamental role in building a cohesive, safe, and integrated future that we want for our children and a country that we want for our children and our country. It is in the extended family where children who would ordinarily remain abandoned and uncared for can be provided with a chance of a better life and a future. Adoption also plays an important role in assisting families and individuals who would ordinarily not have children of their own, with the opportunity to raise and provide vulnerable children. We have heard many stories about children who have grown to be influential people in our society because they had the opportunity to be taken care of in the context of foster care. This should not be a privilege for some, but should be a possibility for all the children who need such support. Honorable members, considering that women are at the helm of responding to the issues around children care, institutions that support women in civil society are important and play a critical role in ensuring that children are protected from all sorts of vulnerability. The Department of Social Development over the years and in this administration led by Minister Zulu provided support to women in civil society towards ensuring that children's rights are protected. Noting the limitations that have existed previously, women in our communities and through various organizations have intervened to protect children who have been subject to abandonment for many reasons. Honorable House Chairperson, the process that our Parliament has gone through towards the amendment of the Children's Act is one that should not be undermined. It goes without saying that resolving the complexity of the protection of vulnerable children requires joint efforts. It is often said that it takes a village to raise a child. In line with this thinking, it is crucial that Department of Social Development strengthens its efforts both through policy enhancement and implementation. The amendment of this bill, of this children's bill, is a step in the right direction towards the improvement of foster care processes. A number of issues have been raised and considered through the process of the bill's amendment. The general consensus is that adoption of this bill embodies a concern for both the vulnerable children of South Africa and the caregivers. Sengigcina-ke malunga lahloniphekile. Kude sakhele kusasa leli lesilifunako lapho bantwana bethu bavikelekile, lapho futhi bonke batfola emathuba ekuphumeleleni empilweni. Kubalulekile ukuthi sivume futhi sivumelane ukuthi leli qhaza lelo noma lo msebenzi lowo awusuye wahulumende kuphela noma wemindeni kuphela. Kwakheka kwale kulisasa lesilifunako kubita ukuthi sihlanganise tandla singuhulumende, tinhlangano tesive, mindeni kanye nemphakathi wongane kude siphokophelele ekufinyeleleni lapho sakha indzawo lephephile nalevikelekile lapho bantwana bethu bahlala khona, futhi kube yindzawo levumela intfutfuko nenqubekela phambili. Ngekwenta njalo sitawube siqinisa lesisekelo salelive, futhi ke angiboni futhi ukuthi kude longeke avumelane nami uma ngithi live lelime kusisekelo lesiqinile, live lelitawuphumelela futhi live lelinekusasa leliqhakazile. Ngiyabonga.
Honorable Jafta from the AI.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, we are extremely concerned with the pace with which this bill has gone about. The North Gauteng High Court issued its judgment in 2011, ordering the Department of Social Development to introduce a comprehensive plan in dealing with the backlog of foster care orders. The court granted the department successive extensions, and despite this, we are still debating this matter. The Western Cape government seems to be the only province managing the backlog of foster care orders. For example, its foster care backlog at the end of May 2022 stood at 2,251 compared to the national backlog of foster care cases, which stood at 28,246 at the end of March 2022. Honorable Chair, we have also noted that there were differences in the committee on the particularity of certain amendments, including the amendment of Clause 10 of the bill amending Section 21 of the Children's Act. The main contention, as we understand it, is the role of unmarried fathers in the foster care value chain. Whatever differences, our hope is that the best interests of foster children are promoted. We will nonetheless, Honorable Chair, support both the report and the bill. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. The Honorable Hendricks Al-Jamal.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Honorable House Chair, parents, legal guardians, caregivers have a responsibility to care for their children physically, emotionally, moral values, and discipline with much love and care. This was shown by President Mandela as soon as he became president, and he made sure that even the unborn child and children up to 7 had free medical care. We also need to reflect on Nobel Peace Prize winner, Chief Albert Lutuli, who emphasized the importance of fatherhood. The children have rights to be protected from harm and to be provided with services for their well-being by their parents and caregivers, and government is secondary to deliver on child rights. Honorable House Chair, I was shocked to hear the criticism of the amendments by members of the opposition party. And these members of opposition parties are some of our most respected honorable members in Parliament, members who are known to care for children and who are very strong on humanitarian values. I am shocked that the Portfolio Committee could not reach consensus on several issues, as we've heard. Unfortunately, I'm not a member of that Portfolio Committee. We should have been, but this is possibly the criticism that have been leveled is so severe that the nation must be shocked. And the Portfolio Committee, with all due respect, opposition and the governing members of that committee must hang their heads in shame because they let South Africa down. So if this bill is going to go forward because of the numbers, like the Zondo Commission stated, Al-Jamaa is going to write to the president not to sign the bill and to refer it back to the Portfolio Committee. So I just hope that members will have a free vote today, and that in fact that more time be spent on this bill. We can't mess with the rights of children. They are not pawns between our politicians. Thank you very much.
Order, honorable members. Go ahead, Honorable Hanif.
Thanks for protecting me, Honorable Chair. Yeah, it's a shame.
Honorable members.
We've heard from very respected honorable members that there are problems. So
but
please,
bring the debate
we are appealing.
Stop blaming people.
So we are appealing that the Portfolio Committee must do much more to reach consensus on issues that affect children. Children are not pawns of politicians, which seems to be the case here. This is very serious, Honorable Chair. You know, Al-Jamaa, we don't easily criticize and condemn motions and on this floor and reports, but I cannot ignore the criticism of the members of opposition parties. Now, I worked in foster care.
Member. The time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Heron, honorable members, Honorable Heron, if you're still there, you can come back. He's not there. Honorable members, please. It's shocking how you try to drown the speaker on the platform. It's really shocking. Please. From the DA, the Honorable L.A. Abram.
Thank you, Chairperson. After 3,530 submissions on over 200 original amendments to the Children's Act, the committee would later learn that DSD failed to consult SALGA, did not factor in the ECD migration, and the most obvious, the committee would never get through all the amendments in time before the NA and NCOP process and still meet the court deadline. On legal advice, the committee prioritized 12 foster care clauses. It became evident the ANC members were given marching orders. Stick to the 12 clauses and hurry up so the minister does not default on the court order. All credible submissions received from stakeholders, many experts in their field, seem to have dissipated. On the 18th of May, the committee agreed, and video recording will confirm, Clause 10 of amending Section 21 would be included, as this would ensure children who live with unmarried fathers will not end up in an already overburdened foster care system, empowering the Children's Court to issue the relevant certificates and apply due diligence in the best interest of the child. Why would Parliament deny fathers their rights and opportunity to father their children if they wanted to? Do we not constantly hear the phrase, the fatherless generation? Imagine our surprise at our next meeting when the legal advisor presented all the changes previously agreed to, with the exception of this clause, which was deliberately left out. Minutes by the impartial Parliamentary Monitoring Group were also discredited, as it did not fit the ANC's agenda of the day. The ANC's attempt to gaslight opposition members led to all opposition parties leaving the meeting on a matter of ethics and principle. In the weeks thereafter, attempts to rewrite history, journalists were attacked, mansplaining by the solo male member, all went unchecked. Even a circus has more order because there's only one ringmaster. Disregarding its own child care and protection policy, Clause 86, Section 150, will now see orphaned and abandoned children found on their own with no caregiver informally placed without a court order. The section will also contradict the new child support grant top-up regulations with regard to before and after screening, which DSD indicated they'll just change once the Act is promulgated, which will only lead to confusion, bottlenecks, and backlogs at SASSA offices. Self-sabotage, if you ask me. Chairperson, time will tell whether the court accepts the minister's incomplete, comprehensive legal solution, and if the foster care crisis has been averted or simply diverted. Contrary to the minister's mantra of leaving no child behind, tens of thousands of children in the foster care system may very well be. The DA cannot support this version of the Children's Amendment Bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Stock from the ANC.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair. The process of the public hearings that has been undertaken towards the amendment of the Children's Amendment Bill highlighted the areas of conflict that exist in the area of misunderstanding by some members of the opposition party combined. It is correct to say that in the main, our communities still and correctly uphold certain cultural beliefs and norms about what is acceptable and also unacceptable in the childcare, especially in the context outside of the institution of marriage. Appreciating that not all South Africans subscribe to the religious and traditional values that are linked to marriage and raising children, it is worthwhile to appreciate that these values remain important and should not be ignored in the process of processing legislation through the parliamentary process. The notion that has been pushed thus far regarding the access of fathers who should have rights to their children, it's at all costs problematic to a large extent, in a sense that it neglects the reality that processes such as inhlawulo continue to play an important role in the South African cultural beliefs. It is also important that in making a case for fathers' accessibility to their children, it is noted that certain abuse of rights that may ultimately hamper the wellness of the child needs to be also taken into consideration. And unfortunately, some members of the opposition, I'm not sure for whatever reason, but I can conclude or maybe assume that due to political desperation, they have chosen to ignore some of these important aspects. Policy remains an integral role in ensuring that people's lives are transformed effectively. Having said that, this, however, is also one of the most important aspects of the policy process in the implementation of the policy, thus requiring joint and coordinated efforts within and across the sectors. It is therefore important, honorable members, that we, when we are doing our oversight responsibility or we are busy with legislative process through our different portfolio committees, we also take into consideration some of the inputs that are raised by the minority groups in our public hearings. And then also, we also take into consideration the issue of cultural connotations that are also being widely expressed throughout our public hearings. Honorable House Chairperson, it is therefore important that we also have the end in sight, in this case, the end being the protection and the caring of the children of South Africa, thus requiring that we consistently respond to the issues in the interest of our children. Honorable Chair, we do recognize that some members of the opposition, out of political desperation, have missed an important opportunity to strengthen an important piece of legislation which deals with the protection of rights of ordinary and vulnerable children. Some of these members of the opposition, what they are not telling us today is that they were part of this process from the inception. They went to public hearings, they sat in the portfolio committee meetings, and the only time where they started to embark on foreign tendencies and thuggish behavior is when their views did not find expression in the portfolio committee meeting.
Chairperson, on a point of order.
With this thuggish behavior in the portfolio committee when their views could not find expression.
Honorable members.
Around Section 21.
Honorable members.
Is it, Chairperson, on a point of order, is it parliamentary to call fellow members of parliament thugs?
Honorable member, you are interrupting. Honorable Stock, can you please take a seat? Honorable members, honorable members, honorable members, could you please give a member on the podium a chance? Don't try to drown him. And honorable members from the visual platform, do not interrupt. You can go ahead, Honorable Stock.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. So these members of the opposition started to embark on that. They started to name call us and label us in the portfolio committee, only because their views could not find expression for the inclusion of Section 21 as part of the amendments that we are considering as the portfolio committee. It is also important to mention, Honorable Chairperson, that throughout the public hearings, when we concluded the public hearings, we came back to the portfolio committee, and then we agreed, because there was a court deadline, we needed to separate the issues and deal first with the 12 clauses that were surviving. So it is also important to mention that these other inputs that we have received from the ECD inputs, all other inputs, including this one of Section 21, those particular views will be considered as part of the second amendment, which will be considered through a committee bill as part of the...
Could you please take a seat? There's a point of order. Honorable Singh.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I rise on a point of order, and I would like you to rule whether it is proper for a member on the podium to say that other members of the committee behaved in a thuggish manner. Now, what does behaving in a thuggish manner? These are honorable members of parliament who might have expressed their views. And I think that requires a withdrawal from the honorable member, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Okay. No, Honorable Chairperson, I would like to withdraw the word thuggish. So these honorable members started to threaten us with a court action only because their views did not emerge. They ended up calling us names, and also these members of the portfolio committee, they embarked on some level of desperation and even led to members of the opposition combined to even go to the extent of mobilizing some alternate members of the portfolio committee who will only come to the portfolio committee when there are problems. But when there's work to be done by the portfolio committee, they will never dare to do the work. Honorable Chairperson, I think it's important. Honorable Chairperson, we refuse to be bullied into submission by some of these members of the opposition because they knew very well that they failed to persuade us in the portfolio committee. So some of us in the committee, we actually rejected their views because we felt that they just wanted to politically to grandstand and also to play into the public gathering. We're extremely also, Honorable Chairperson, it is not in the interest of the vulnerable children of South Africa to be hazed and risk missing the opportunity to adequately deal with the state of vulnerability and care of the majority of children. As the African National Congress, our commitment rests with protecting the rights of the children of this country. It is also our view that the future of our country lies with them, and all children deserve and should be provided with the requisite support, love and care in order for them to live full and happy lives and make a contribution to the South Africa of our dreams. Honorable Chairperson, as the ANC, we support this particular bill and we are of the view all the process is due. We support this bill. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Singh, the member has withdrawn.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Voluntarily, I will therefore not rule on that.
Thank you, sir.
Honorable, the Minister of Social Development. Thank you, honorable members.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, Chair of the House. If I may, sometimes it's important to go back to history, because history is what always will absolve us. And in this particular case, Honorable Chair and honorable members, I don't want to go into the semantics or the dramas that happened at the Portfolio Committee, because sometimes I was at the Portfolio Committee, sometimes I did not attend, but whenever I did attend, I took it that all of us in that committee had nothing else but the interests of the children of South Africa. Secondly, Chairperson, I think at the center of everything, from the point of view of the African National Congress, we can assure the South African children and we can assure the South African mothers and fathers that every time we step into any platform, be it related to developing policy or writing legislation, it's never about our interests, it's always about the interests of the people of South Africa. And in this particular case, I can assure you, Chairperson, that as the African National Congress, nothing is difficult for us. You'll never find us walking out of any meeting whatsoever, because our commitment is about ensuring that the work that we have to do, we complete it. We have been completing our work in as far as legislation and regulation since 1994. Quite frankly, we didn't start in 1994. We started long before 1994 when we started developing the reconstruction and development of this country. And therefore, to the honorable members, we will continue doing what we have to do and do it in the best way that we can. The rest shall go back and be debated at the committee itself, and I'm confident that the members of the committee will always rise to the occasion, especially from the side of the ANC. But I also know that even from the side of the opposition, there are those who rise to the occasion.
Thank you very much.
And when they rise to the
Honorable Minister.
occasion, they will meet us along the way, because we've got work to do. I thank you very much and thank the members who supported the bill.
Honorable members, are there any objections to the bill being read a second time?
Yes, Honorable Chairperson.
It's noted, Honorable Singh. Honorable Van der Merwe. Honorable Gwagube.
Please note the objection of the Democratic
Noted.
Alliance.
And the objection of the FF Plus.
Noted.
The ACDP,
Objection
thank
of the EFF.
Is that the EFF?
ACDP, thank you.
Oh, the SADP. Noted.
We are
Thank you
naughty
very
now,
much.
Chairperson. You are becoming naughty.
Mkhalepi. Honorable Mkhalepi.
I did object, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. It's noted. Thank you very much, honorable members. Report agreed to. The secretary will read the bill a second time.
Children's Amendment Bill.
The bill will be sent to the National Council of Provinces for concurrence.
Sorry, Chairperson. Could we please call for a division?
It's late.
You are sleeping on June.
Members, honorable members, we follow the guidelines to the letter. So the objection came a little bit too late, honorable member. So I would not accept it.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Mpangazit.
That concludes the business for the day. The House is adjourned.
Long live Mahlobo. Long live Chair.
Long live the Chair.